It is 5:41. It is 5:41 and the meeting is now called to order.
Good evening. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 1046 et sec, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising in the Star Ledger, and the Nuevo Coquille, Haiti Progress, and Luz Americana newspapers, and by distribution to the administrative offices of the Newark Public Schools. A copy of the meeting notice was also forwarded to City Hall for posting. This is a board business meeting for Tuesday night, October 20, 2015.
Please rise for the flag salute.
Sorry, I thought I
I
was
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
here.
Ms. Carter.
Here.
Ms. Fonseca.
Here.
Mr. Hassan.
Present.
Mr. Jackson.
Present.
Mr. Lewis. Mr. Rashidi.
Here.
Mr. Sellinger.
Here.
Chair Perello.
Present.
Quorum is present, Madam Chair.
Motion?
I see. You call from.
Is there a motion now to call for executive session?
Motion.
Okay, that's a motion to go into executive session moved by Ms. Fonseca, second by Mr. Jackson.
Question.
I'll explain what it is.
Okay, 'cause I'm.
It's a motion. It's a motion to go into executive session for attorney-client privilege for a current litigation matter
Okay, thank you, sir.
that the board will require to take action most likely next week. So the motion was moved by Ms. Fonseca, second by Mr. Jackson. Again, this is a motion to go into executive session for matters concerning attorney-client privilege on a current litigation matter. Roll call, Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
Yes.
Ms. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Fonseca.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hassan.
Abstain.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Rashidi.
Yes.
Mr. Sellinger.
Yes.
Chair Perello.
Yes.
Motion carries. We can go into executive session.
If I may just inquire, the only staff that's required is legal staff in our SBA. We anticipate this will be a very short session.
That
Thank
was
you.
my question. Thank you.
You move, Ms. Carter? Okay, Ms. Carter moved to reconvene the meeting to open session. Mr. Rashidi on a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain or opposed? Motion carries. We're back into open session.
Up next, we have committee chairperson report. The first person that I'm going to call is Ms. Carter.
Great. Good afternoon. The Personnel Committee met on October 15th. Those in attendance, board members in attendance was myself and Tony Baskerville Richardson. The meeting started at 5:45. It ended at 6:45. We talked about the CUSAC personnel update, which was the district improvement plan. I went over that last month, so I'll be brief with that. We talked about indicator number 1 and indicator number 2, which we can use to gain points. The first indicator is about making sure that our teachers are teaching in the right area. And so there's a program that the district is looking into which is the acronym is HOUSE. And that is where some teachers are grandfathered in. And then the other issues was we had some teachers who are dually certified. And so on the roster, they may have been certified to teach science, but they were now teaching a math class. So it didn't show properly on the roster. However, they were certified to teach that math class. The third indicator is about our documents, and what we're trying to do is digitize them. So anything from March 2015, we're paying to have that on a cloud. So what the district has committed to is making sure that all the documents from March 2015 to now to current, that they will be, they will make sure that they're complete. So if we are audited for something current, comes time again for CUSAC, we will have everything in order. However, there were some problems with previous documents due to space and them having to hold documents that some of the documents may have been destroyed due to a leak in a basement. So we can't, even if we put those on a cloud, there's no way for us to remake those documents. The district is also going to be in conversation with the Department of Education about trying to change the rules around how long they have to hold on to documents because it's a space issue. So even if we digitize it, they'll still have to pay for files from 10 to 15 years ago. The next thing we discussed at the meeting was the vacancy update. So there's still 213 vacancies at school. 89 of them are instructional, 124 are support roles. I'm going to briefly go through it again because I know you're interested. There's one open at Bard High School, 2 at Barrenshire Academy STEAM, 1 at North Leadership Academy, 1 at University, 3 at Barrenshire Academy Arts and Humanities, 6 at Central, 8 at Eastside, 6 at Malcolm X Shabazz, 2 at Weekway, 1 at Eagle Academy, 1 at North Vocational, 2 at Girls Academy, 1 at American History, 1 at Early College High School, 3 at Ann Street, 3 at Park Elementary, 2 at Avon, 3 at Louise Munez Marin, 2 at Cleveland, 2 at Elliott, 2 at Franklin, 6 at William H. Horton, 1 at E. Elma Flagg, 1 at Hawkins, 4 at Hawthorne, 1 at McKinley, 2 at Miller, 1 at Oliver, 2 at Peshine, 2 at Rafael Hernandez, 2 at Speedway, 2 at Roberto Clemente, 2 at Sussex Avenue, 5 at Wilson Avenue, and 4 at George Washington Carver. Of those vacancies, 9 are special education vacancies, which are 1 at Barrenshire, 1 at Avon, 2 at Cleveland, 1 at Elliott, 1 at Hawthorne, 1 at McKinley, 1 at Miller, and 1 at George Washington. What we discussed is that we have special education teachers in a hopper. So the reason why these vacancies may exist is because the school doesn't need a special education teacher. So it's not that we don't have them ready, it's that there's no need at the school, is what the district is telling us. Central office has 200 vacancies. They're all on hold. The district has seen 83 separations, which include 49 resignations, 22 retirements, and 12 other, which are comprised of 9 discharge, 2 criminal history, and 1 job abandonment. We talked about the guidance counselor position at Central High School because that's a position that is still open, and the guidance counselor at Central was a part of the layoff process due to tenure that we discussed. So what's happening at Central right now is the school is determining if they would like to utilize the vacant position and reclassify it so that they may bring that person or someone else into a different position, but it wouldn't be under the title of guidance counselor. The board members asked how many students were recommended as a ratio per guidance counselor. The talent will connect with the assistant superintendent in high schools to provide that information. We also asked how many special education teacher applications do we have, and the talent office is looking into that number for us. Lastly, before that, we went over the teacher mentoring memo, was reviewed with the board, and it detailed that there's no fiscal impact on the district in relation to mentoring. So first year teachers have to pay out of their pocket to a mentor, but that has no impact on the district. The last thing we went over is the overtime OFAC report, which I believe Vanessa is going to go into more detail about that. So we'll wait to hear that from Vanessa. No need for me to go into that. And that is all.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. The floor is now open for discussion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Jackson?
good evening. Just to piggyback real fast on the comment about the title of guidance counselor. All right, so that I understand, what is the new title going to be, and will that position be filled by the same person? And then if so, what are the requirements and or the changes, specs and scopes of the job, and is there a different salary and or certification? And then if there isn't, then mainly what is the purpose for the change? And not go back and forth with the committee, but also for the district to answer.
There are currently excess of guidance counselors in the district who are in the EWPS pool. So if there is a guidance counselor vacancy, we're going to fill that with a tenured guidance counselor. I think what Ms. Carter was referring to is the fact that there was a guidance counselor at Central High School, and now there is not a vacancy on the roster. The principal is considering whether or not they want to continue to look to fill other types of roles and positions in their building, and whether or not the individual who was laid off would be a fit to any of those other vacancies in the school. But we would not be creating a position around guidance in another way. We have guidance counselors that will fill the guidance counselors' positions.
Okay, so that's what was.
So yeah, so it was my understanding, so right now there's a vacancy for Central High School under guidance counselor. So when I saw that, I asked the question of there was a highly effective guidance counselor at Central who was let go. And the school was very upset about that, and they didn't want a forced place guidance counselor because this guidance counselor was highly effective. So in order to, it was my understanding, it would have to be an entire new position that this person would be able to do and be qualified for. And they would make whatever it is, it may be a position that exists already, but this person would have the opportunity to apply. However, this person cannot come back under the guidance counselor position because she's not tenured.
That's correct.
Got you. Okay, so now let me ask this question. Is there still a guidance counselor vacancy at Central High School?
And there is a guidance counselor that was assigned to that school. So if the principal has chosen not to allow that guidance counselor in, that is a conversation with the principal. But there's a principal that's been assigned to that school.
See?
Mr. Lewis?
See?
And that guidance counselor has tenure rights to that position, which is why we assigned that guidance counselor to that school.
Chair.
Ms. Fonseca?
So who's going to ask the principal why the guidance counselor is not functioning in that position if they were assigned there with that? I'm confused. Who asked that question?
We are following up with the principal.
So we'll have an answer at the next meeting? So
We
that
can have an answer before
please.
the next meeting.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Pascal Richardson?
Yes, so I attended the personnel meeting for the first time, and I really learned a lot. And I have a question based around information that was given by Ms. Rodriguez regarding what Ms. Carter was talking about the district being in the process of compiling all of the employee records. And my understanding that the district is in the process of scanning all of the records for past as well as present employees in order to seek to comply with what CUSAC is asking. But in deeper conversation, the amount of money that we have been able to, or that we have budgeted for that, I think was approximately $60,000 a year. But the amount of money that it would take to expedite the process of scanning all of these materials would be, I think, approximately $320,000. And then even after all of that is done, that but only when that is done that we will be able to assess what information we have, what information is missing, what information is recoverable, and what information, because of time, there's just no way to get. So what I'm getting at is this is something that's holding us back from CUSAC points that I wasn't aware of the details of, and it's also something obviously that we need to have done. So what I'm asking, I guess the superintendent is there any way to seek any sort of partner, sponsor, or private funds that would help us to be able to expedite and just simply to be more aggressive and try to get this work done rather than taking years as it would the way that we now have it budgeted?
I'm sorry, thank you for that. It seems to be, and to my ear at least, a absurd and technical basis upon which not to have CUSAC points awarded, and I will certainly advocate to the state that that is, sort of, in my judgment, sort of missing the point. I will also happily seek to raise funds to support the effort, but beyond that, I can't make any specific assurances. I think it's actually a terrific idea.
Thank you.
Yes, we did build a certain amount into our budget for this year, and we will be starting the budgeting process for next year, so we can also look at our broader budget and work with Ms. Wilson's team to figure out if there are other funds that we can put towards this project.
I have a question. While I agree with trying to go back, but I just want to make sure that we're not misusing funds that could be used in a classroom, because if I understand correctly, even if we do put it on a cloud, if we were to get audited again by CUSAC, by putting it on a cloud still doesn't mean that we're going to recreate documents we don't have. So we just don't have those documents. So they could be in a cloud or paper-based. We're still going to fail because we can't recreate some documents that have been done away with, correct?
Kind of. Let me put some clarity. Both for CUSAC, good afternoon, board chair, members of the board, I apologize. In terms of NJ CUSAC and in terms of the CAFRA, which is our annual audit, both processes look at employee records. As a part of employee records, there are certain documents that we must have in place. Because of various pieces, our records are not necessarily in the condition that we would like them to be, and we are not readily able to find all of our documents. So scanning and back scanning of documents will do two things. It's not going to produce a document that we are missing. It may help us find some documents that have either been misfiled in someone else's file, because there's human error associated with that, or documents that have not been filed at this time. So it's going to hopefully help us find some documents, but it's not going to guarantee that we're going to find all of them. Going forward, the scanning will ensure that we now have an accurate record of all the files. So when either a CUSAC review or a CAFRA review occurs, it is based on random samples that are pulled by the reviewers or auditors. They can go back and pull people who are deceased or separated from the organization. There's no limit on the time frame, or they can go for current employees. So it's a way, scanning would be, and digitizing our records would be a way to ensure that we improve the integrity of our records, but it is not going to resolve the fact that we have had missing records. What will resolve that is an ongoing current plan to ensure that we review the document files and ensure that we have appropriate documents for all employees who are hired going forward.
Chair.
Aye, Mr. Lewis.
Maybe Chief Town also or the Superintendent of Finance Committee can answer this question. Those employees who files was pulled and information was missing, when were they, do we know when were they hired and what time period were they hired?
Mr. Lewis, that's varied. As I've said, the auditors can pick a scope of time based on their judgment. And sometimes the sample is also going to be dependent on what they find. They may ask for 10 files, and let's say we were only able to produce 8. Then they will broaden the sample and ask for 25, right? In that 25, we may be missing some others. So it's not limited to a time span. They're not going to go back 50 years. So I wouldn't say we should go back scanning of 50 years. Maybe we should look at our back scan and say we're going to limit the amount that we scan in and deal from a period of maybe 5-10 years based on some advice we may receive from our auditors, because that's a question we can ask them.
Yeah, that'll be something that I'd be interested in, knowing out of the files that they pulled or they selected, what was the time span of their hiring, because it also can allow us to look at our hiring practices and see where the problem really comes from, because I know we also use an outsourced company to help with some of our talent search. So, I just wanted to see what's the time frame, if we can get that information provided to the board.
Ms. Fonseca?
I'm not sure who can answer this, but so going forward, these documents are going to be scanned because, I'm asking this for clarity because since our goal as a board is to make sure that we regain local control and we meet all the CUSAC requirements, I just want to make sure that we are going to scan.
Yes.
It's 2015, so we should be scanning this stuff.
Yes, we're going to be scanning the scanning process. We're going to start with files from March 2015 into current. That's going to be the first batch we do because those are the most recent hires. And then we're going to then work our way back and look at our budget to ensure that we can build that in. So everything that we can scan from March 2015 up to now is going to start. And then we're going to go back and scan the rest.
So the March, I'm sorry, I just want to be sure, so when we get tested, when they come to check us out again, right? Ms. Valerie, you probably know the answer. They're checking right now documents from what time period?
If we're talking about CUSAC,
Right, the 3 years
CUSAC, when they come in, let's say for an interim assessment, which we anticipate in the spring, they would be looking at your most current data. So I would anticipate that they would pull files from the current school year.
Okay, so we'll be good then. All right, good. Thank you so much.
Any other board members? Is there a motion to accept Ms. Carter's report?
Move it.
Mr. Lewis, second.
Second.
Ms. Fonseca. This is a motion to accept the Personnel Committee report as delivered by Board Member Carter. Moved by Mr. Lewis, second by Fonseca. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next, we have program and instruction. Ms. Pascal Richardson.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, Program and Instruction Committee had a very aggressive,
You're all right.
It's okay. Very aggressive agenda. We met on Tuesday, October 13th. Thank you, baby. Thank you.
Buddy.
Present at the meeting, myself, Antoinette Baskerville Richardson, Chair, Committee Member Dashae Carter, NPS designee Dr. Caleb Perkins, NPS Math Team, Nick Romagnolo, Darlene DeVries, teachers, Amy Panich and Tracy Blasquez from Franklin School, NPS staff, Roger Leon, Lizzie Gelber, and Marixa Castillo. I'm going to go through this. Some of this might seem like in a different order than it should have been presented, but that was because some people basically had to do their part and then leave. So the first thing that we talked about was basically an update on curriculum and college readiness. We have been focusing each month on a particular area and curriculum in a particular area, and this month our focus was on reviewing and kind of digging deep on the curriculum in math. So we had a wonderful presentation by the two teachers, Amy Panich and Tracy Vasquez from Franklin School, and they basically showed us some project-based learning that they developed that was very successful at Franklin School dealing with math. It was a very impressive model and one that I think would be wonderful to use as a model all over the country. I'm sorry, all over the city, hopefully all over the country. And it was very, 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 very detailed, so I'll try to kind of tell it quickly. So the curriculum they use is expeditionary learning and math in focus. But what this project did was basically go beyond the text, a lot beyond the text. The students worked in groups. It was learning the way that people learn in real life. And they had to answer, and the other thing that was very good about it is that they used technology. They used the Chromebooks, not just for park or not just for park preparation, but they used the Chromebooks in their project as a learning tool. So they had to. The title of the project was "Disrupting the Pink Aisle," and they had to answer or try to address the essential question: how does the toy industry shape what we want to be when we grow up? And they took a number of steps, and I'm leaving out a lot, but they had to work with, they had to obviously work with language arts to do this. They had to work with graphs and data in math. They had to develop a survey. They had to analyze the data. They, of course, circulated the survey. Then they had to analyze their data. The teachers were just facilitators. The students did all of the work. They found nonfiction text to support their concept. They used a read-write tool. They shared their work, developing simple machines that were gender neutral. So there was an outcome, and they shared that work. They developed machines that were gender neutral, and they shared that and presented it to 600 students. So that, and they also sent letters home to the parents about their project. So that's, I want to say it was very delightful to hear directly from the wonderful teachers who developed and did this project, because I'm sometimes reluctant when I hear from folks who aren't actually in the classroom. So it was good to hear from the teachers who actually did this project. And what I thought after listening to the review of the project is that parents might ask, but when do they learn math? Because they're not sitting and they're not learning math in what we think of the traditional way of learning math, where there's a teacher in the front putting numbers and signs on a board, and you're learning and you're memorizing. But they have to use math in a very engaging and a different way, but they're still using math. And Dr. Perkins or Mr. Leone, unless you think that there's something else vital that needs to be said about that, thank you. And moving on, and this is a little bit out of line, but we'll get back to the curriculum stuff specifically. The next thing that we talked about was our field trips, and the only, well, there was a bit of discussion because there were field trips to JFK Recreational Center. So both Ms. Carter and I had some questions because we had been attempting to, and are attempting to, modify the district's policy on field trips to allow our students to go to recreational places where there is water, of course, with supervision. And we asked for details on the special needs students who go to JFK, and we were given specific information about the adults who supervise them, about the certifications that they have, about the student-teacher ratio, and so that we came to understand why this particular why these trips were allowed for these particular students at the pool when other students aren't allowed places where there is water. And Ms. Carter asked what I think is an essential question, which is, why doesn't the general education population get the same life skills? Moving on. The next thing that we talked about was CUSAC, the district improvement plan. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I believe that that is going to be today in the superintendent's report. I would just say that of the indicators, as you will see, most of the indicators cannot be resolved quickly. However, they can be resolved if we have a strategic plan that really addresses incremental growth, and we're able to show benchmarks, and we're able to show how we will achieve student achievement. So I believe that, and we will see in the DIP that the district has designed, that it does say what the district will do, but it doesn't give timelines, and I believe that it needs timelines and that it needs benchmarks in order to really move us, not to move us towards CUSAC, and also to move us toward being able to really say that we're educating our children and that we are able to project how we're going to move them minimally into the 80%. There's one indicator, the indicator that is not linked to the student achievement piece. Okay, has to do with the use of technology, where we lost points. And the district believes, as it will be detailed, that we have corrected that and that the use of technology is minimally at least comparable with other districts. So in summation, we believe that we need more detail on academic benchmarks, more clarity on the involvement of on what the involvement of multiple stakeholders will look like. We need an aggressive, not an unrealistic plan on what incremental growth can be, and more specifics on what the district will do to make it happen. Next, and now we're going back to the curriculum piece with focus on math. We had a presentation by Nick Romagnolo and Darlene DeVries, and they were basically talking about how math is taught now, again, opposed to how math was taught. And I don't want to, say the same thing twice, but that the most important thing that I got out of that whole conversation is that we should expose students to multiple strategies for every math concept, and then they won't get stuck, which means that instead of saying it must be done this way and this is the only way to do it and this is the process, that whatever process that you use and you're able to get the correct answer is a good process, but the student should have the option of knowing about multiple processes to get to the right answer. So that was the most important thing I got out of that particular conversation. How are we implementing this curriculum in math? Teachers are being trained through LIFT, which is a leadership institute for teacher teams, and they have lab sites, their administrator walkthroughs with vice principals, and focusing on implementing new instructional strategies. A lot more details than that. And then, okay, I'm going to move on. We have resolutions. We had one resolution on the repair of musical instruments, and the one resolution that was controversial was a resolution, it was number 8640 on instructional services, and this particular resolution called for, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, but it called for hiring special needs teachers from a private company. And I'm not sure if that one is still on the table or if it's been removed.
During the personnel meeting, they said it was going to be removed.
That particular resolution has been removed. However, the need still exists, so the district is looking at alternatives. It is possible that a modified or changed resolution could be submitted in time for the board meeting next week. But it will be circulated no later than your Friday packet.
Okay.
Because it is imperative that everyone understand that we have the need. We need to meet the requirements of our litigation that has occurred over the years, and we've got to look for alternatives because we do not have sufficient resources within the district.
Thank you. So thank you for that, because I was going to kind of cut that report short, but I will talk about some of the conversation that we had. We asked if we were going to do a national search. We had questions about why the district is unable to find special needs teachers. And basically, we had questions about whether how this would affect the contractual agreement with the union, with this being an issue. And basically, at the point that we left the meeting, it was the feeling of the committee that we would not be able to recommend passage of the resolution that had been presented to us. So we'll see what the modified looks like. We talked about summer school data, and Dr. Perkins said basically that what we got, that he would clean it up and post it. Does that mean that it will be on the website, Dr. Perkins?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And do we know when that should be?
It should be by the regular meeting, but I can confirm that.
Thank you. And the last piece of, we had a brief discussion about Amistad implementation. I had suggested that the Program Instruction Committee review all of the social studies texts to take a look at them and see how we can see Amistad implemented in the text that we give our students, and also to see how issues regarding people of African descent are articulated in the text that we give to our children. And the meeting was adjourned at 8:27 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Basco. Richardson, the floor is now open for discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Carter.
In terms of that resolution, I brought this up to the superintendent. There's no way that, so the board is receiving contradicted information. To say that what was presented to us at the program and instruction meeting was this resolution was asking for special education teachers. However, in my personnel meeting, it was said that we have special education teachers in the hopper. And the reason why vacancies are not filled is because the schools do not need that special ed teacher. What that is contradicting what the audit has come back and said. So therefore, we need to know what the real deal is.
Ms. Carter, that's not necessarily how I explained it. What I said is that there are vacancies. I use special ed as a possibility, as an example. It wasn't that we didn't have a need for it. I said there are vacancies on the list. Some may not be filled because there may not be a need to fill those vacancies.
Yes, but then I asked.
It wasn't specific to saying that.
But then I don't know if you recall, I
asked
if there are special education vacancies and we have special education teachers in the hopper, why are there any special education vacancies on the report if we do have teachers in the hopper?
And we are looking into it because I also did state that there are very specific needs, right, for special education. It could be an autism class, there could be an OT, and it has to have a certified and trained individual who can actually step into that specific type of classroom. So there are different types of classrooms for special ed. We have to match the teacher to that specific type of classroom to ensure that they have the appropriate training.
Understand that, but the resolution that was presented to us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, the resolution, when we asked was it specialized, it was presented to us as no, this particular resolution was just for the special education classrooms, that they would be coming to us with another resolution for OT and speech therapy. So that still means we're receiving contradicting information.
So may I try to resolve this? So here's the facts that I am very satisfied with. We not only have a legal obligation, but more importantly, an educational obligation to make sure that we have all of our special education students have appropriate certified teachers pursuant to their IEP or otherwise. I am satisfied that there are insufficient special ed teachers on staff to meet our legal and moral obligations. Therefore, when it was brought to my attention by our special ed leadership, I immediately authorized that we take all steps immediately to fill that gap, regardless of our budget circumstances, because this is something we just have to do. Maybe we need to retool the resolution or to make sure that we've done the scrubs that Ms. Richardson and others have talked about. But my number one commitment right now is to find effective, quality special education teachers to come in to meet those needs. We're in the middle of October. Happily, I was also advised that our related services, OT, PT, speech language being the leading examples, that there's no need to go outside the ordinary processes for for those. So the resolution that will be coming to, did I hear something? The resolution that will be, that we have had an internal discussion literally in the last 24 hours about the particular path that was reflected in the first resolution. Is it the right entity? I want to make sure that I am absolutely satisfied that we don't have any appropriate special ed personnel under contract in a pool or otherwise. That could, I believe actually the number of individuals that we need has been reduced dramatically because we have found special ed teachers to do it. So we are tying up some loose ends and getting that done. But when we get back to you in time for the board meeting, we will have a clear resolution about how we're going to address this.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not going to a private contractor when we have available certified teachers in a hopper.
I
and
agree.
if we do have them in a hopper, why aren't they placed in the classroom?
So I do not, I believe, I'm going to get the number wrong, but just by way of illustration, at one point we needed 20 teachers. We found 10 of those in the hopper. There are 10 that we don't have. And we would not go out and go to an independent entity to get them if we had appropriate certified personnel in the specialized areas already under our employ. We couldn't do that, and we wouldn't do that.
Ms. Basco-Richardson?
Yes, I'd like to suggest that the district explore another option. I know in some other states, retired teachers are allowed to be either rehired or continue to teach and receive the salary of a first-year teacher and still keep their pension benefits. I don't know if that is something that can simply be done or if it would have to be legislated, but I think it may be worth looking into as either a short-term or a long-term solution rather than looking at privatization.
I think we'd be happy to look into that. I actually think that may be permissible in this state. I'm going off of a distant memory. But right now, our number one priority is to get these students the services and the education they needed. So we'll be getting back to you with a proposal. Thank you.
But can I get a commitment, or can we get a commitment that you would investigate that option?
Yes, we'd be happy to investigate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair,
Ms. Fonseca?
do we have a time frame as to when we're going to make sure that all of those special needs teachers' spots are going to be filled? Because it's already October 20th.
Right. So,
and as a parent of a special needs student, I know that if my kid wasn't getting the services by October 20th, it would be a problem. And we've been at several meetings where several special needs parents have actually approached us and informed us of their their children not being properly serviced. So I just want to put on the record that I don't want us to go into 6 months into the school year and us face these same problems that we dealt with when I got on the board in April. So I just want to know if we have like a time frame or what we're planning.
First of all, I absolutely agree with the thrust of your point. We want to do this as quickly as possible. This process, as we're just experiencing at the moment, is the opposite of nimble. We could have those teachers in classrooms tomorrow. And I'm not, obviously we have to go through that process, but that is something that, were we not encumbered with the way business is often done, we could do tomorrow. But we have to assure that we're not violating the collective bargaining agreement. We have to ensure that we've satisfied all of the various concerns that have been identified. Personally, from my point of view, I'd go the interest of children trumps all of that, and we should do it tomorrow and let all this other stuff be what other people can fight about. But that's my orientation. But that's obviously, so I will tell you that we will have a resolution for this by the time we meet in public meeting.
May the board get a copy of what the results of the special education audit was, instead of us getting it in pieces, so we can actually see what the findings were?
If I said special education audit, I got ahead of myself. Is there a particular document that exists that you?
When the resolution was presented to us, it was said that this came from there being some type of audit done of the department, and they found that this is what needed to be done. This is where we weren't in compliance. So I'm asking, can the board or someone present to the program and instruction committee the complete findings?
Absolutely. The conversation I just relayed came from Marilyn Mitchell, who came in and sat with me on an emergency basis and said, this is what we need. So I haven't seen a paper on it. I'm sure there's paperback, but I will make sure if she is, that she will come to the next meeting and provide the documentation and the context that you request. I actually don't know if she's available that night, but I will obviously encourage that to happen. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other board members? Mr. Thettinger?
Yeah, on the field trips, I'd like to know how come all the names of the children got to be in August? Because a lot of kids come in September that you don't know they're coming to the school, and they're missing a lot of these field trips. Because I went to a few schools, and they told me the names have to be put in, but you know, with the NORC 1 plan, you don't know what kids are going to what school yet. So how could their names be put in? So why wouldn't they at least do it in September?
I have the answer.
Yeah, first of all, I think everybody in this room agrees that's completely goofy, right? To require people to be on a list when they're not in the school. But having now thrown that editorial comment out, I'll hand it over to SBA Wilson, and I'm sure, elucidate.
Let me provide some clarity.
Yeah.
If you review our travel documentation and specifically NJAC 6A23A, which speaks specifically to travel and the state's requirements on trips that are out of state, etc., there is a need to have an approval process, and that names being in August is not for the whole school year. It is for trips that schools have planned for September and probably early October, so that we can meet the requirements and ensure that we are meeting our board policy in terms of board approval of trips. It is not hard and fast that if children have to be added, because trips do get modified, that won't happen after enrollment has been done. But we are trying to deal with trips that are in September and in early October. After that, we've basically got the rest of the year. So we try to make deadlines, because if we don't, then there is the potential that children will go on a trip that this board has not approved. And that would be a violation of our policy.
So it sounds to me like that's a policy that is worthy of review, and it's something we would all need to do together, because there's some children who don't even come to the district. Literally, I mean, there's been recent accounts of a family that didn't even come to the district until the middle of October, and obviously that can happen. So I would hate to have a situation where those children cannot participate with their new classmates. So I'm sure Ms. Wilson is entirely right that we're following a written policy and don't want to get crosswise with it. But I am sure that it's a policy that, with a fresh look, is something we can improve. So let's commit to doing that.
Any other board members?
Yes. Ms. Baskerville-Richardson, you mentioned the use of the devices in the classroom. Last year we made a $5 million investment, but I know we weren't to the level we had one-to-one as far as the one-to-one device for every student. Could you report back at the next meeting where we are with that, and also advise what the district strategy is moving forward to implement blended learning across the entire district, as you alluded to earlier?
No, I cannot report back on the entire district's effort to include blended learning, but we will certainly put it on the agenda and get what information we can. In terms of the ratio of devices per student, do you mean like a district-wide average? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, because I think last year was, if I'm not mistaken, we probably ended the year with one device for every 3 students. And I thought there were going to be some initial investments to get more devices into the classrooms.
I don't know. Perhaps Dr. Perkins, can you answer that now? If not, we can address that next month.
We are still at 3-to-1, and there will be a brief update on the digital learning initiative, which relates to blended learning, and we can absolutely address it in more detail at the November Program Instruction Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last comment I want to make, I don't know if we mentioned what school presented it. Do you remember what school it was, Tony?
Franklin.
Franklin, I just want to say the students did an exceptional job with what we see in the webcast. They had their own web version of learning that they took the initiative with, and we saw that. And if we can get that throughout the district, it would be amazing. So those students over there and those teachers, they're doing a great job. And I think you all would be, I don't know if we're able to show it to the public, but they're doing some great work over there. So I just wanted to recognize them.
If there's any, I mean, can we put it on the website, and is it a possibility sometime in the near future of showcasing it, that piece either here or at one of the regular board meetings? I think would be very helpful.
Definitely. So the Assistant Superintendent, Leon, will go in more detail. That's actually the plan for this Monday's meeting, is to have those same teachers come and present briefly and to share the students' webcast or Google Hangout with the whole public.
Wonderful.
Any other board members? Is there a motion to accept Ms. Basco Richardson's
motion?
Second, Hassan.
Motion to accept the Program Instruction Committee is delivered by Board Member Basco Richardson, moved by Mr. Lewis, second by Hassan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next, we have the Finance Committee. Mr. Lewis?
So, I actually locked out of my email, so I didn't get my report, so I'm going to do an impromptu report. Our meeting started at 16 yesterday. We discussed agenda items that's going to be voted upon. We reviewed the payroll report. We also reviewed our secretary's report, our transfer report, treasury report. We also reviewed the resolution concerning Randy Ford Foundation donation to Flag Elementary School. They'll be donating the playground equipment to the school. We talked about our DIP for the Finance Committee, which is the District Improvement Plan. We also talked about how the possibility of how we're going to proceed with the finances, or what checks, how checks going to be cut in the district. All checks come before the board before they're issued. Ms. Wilson told us that it's some checks, payments that must be paid, like our charter school payments, and other our charter school payments, and some bills that we are required to pay. So we as a committee said that we was gonna float around the resolution to the board to review our process on how we're gonna move forward with checks, because some payments ask for a check in the middle of the month, and if we were going to have all checks come before the committee and the board for review, that means we'll have to have a net 30. That means we have to inform our vendors that they have to wait 30 days out before receiving payment. So we, Ms. Basco Richardson, myself, and President Perello said we wanted to move forward as fast as possible with this process because we already prolonged it so long, so we don't want to wait till November. We want the board to review the resolution and hopefully have it on the agenda for Monday's meeting so we can move forward with receiving complete control of the finances of the district. We concluded our meeting at 7:20 on the dot. And any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lewis and committee, for having a discussion about bringing all checks before the board for approval. I do have one concern though with the net 30. What kind of impact do we foresee that happening on small businesses that the district does business with? And I know right now we have a disparity study that's currently in process right now. And if all goes well, then the district would likely start to do more business with small businesses and minority-owned businesses. And I don't think that they will necessarily have the bankroll to go 30 days without the payments in a lot of instances.
So that's something we discussed. We talked about, I don't know if this wasn't one, but we talked about possibility of certain vendors, Ms. Wilson being able to make the payment, if the board give her permission to make the payment when they need to be made, just for certain gaps.
Okay. Thank you.
For smaller venues.
Mr. Lewis?
Amounts.
Mr. Lewis is correct. We did talk about small vendors and the impact, because right now the district makes payments on a weekly basis. Going to this process, we would make what are mandated payments, which include early childhood providers, charter schools, health benefits, things of that nature. In terms of emergent payments, we would have to set up a process that allows us to expedite those payments, or the authority needs to be delegated to me in terms of making those as emergencies occur. There is a concern of the stress it may place on some of our small businesses, and we'd have to maybe work some of that through. So that's why there's been the discussion. Well, the process would be that a resolution would come before this board indicating clearly how payments would be made, and then we would switch over to that process.
Could we, Mr. Lewis or Ms. Wilson, explore the possibility of classifying certain payments by tiers? So this would be a tier 1 payment, this being a tier 2 payment, and then, put those vendors in those categories. So under these circumstances, if the board decided or committee decided that authority would be given to Ms. Wilson to provide the tier 1 payments, which would, be...
In light of the actual hour, what I would submit to the board is that clearly we can, with the right priorities, and I think there's no daylight between the district and the board here, we would, without question, seek to get the certain exceptions that are necessary, and what I'm hearing Mr. Hassan speak to, which is perfectly legal, to ensure that we don't put undue burden, hardship on certain vendors. So yes, that can be done.
Thank you.
Ms. Pasquale?
Yes, I just want to clarify that, and Mr. Hassan, I know that you're very familiar with the fact that the reason that we are even having this discussion has to do with our return to local control in the area of fiscal, and this is basically changing the process, is basically the way that the board gets to see what is being paid before it's being paid, whereas now we just get a list of checks that have already been cut. So certainly there are more details to be worked out, but I just want to be clear as to what this change is all about. This change is about local control. And in the conversation at the Finance Committee meeting, we did ask Ms. Wilson to investigate a couple of things. One, how did the district deal with payments way back before state control? How do other districts that are locally controlled deal with payments? And to so that we can look at at information based on what other districts do, and then certainly design something, possibly a hybrid that would work for us. And the other thing, clearly understand not wanting to put any undue strain on small businesses, but 30-day net, small businesses may not like it, but it's not unheard of. And I think the most important thing we have to do now is to be able to actually have local control, not just in word, but in action. And, we can certainly look at modifying as needed. Thank you.
Any other board members? Is there a motion to accept the Finance Committee report?
Second.
Mr. Salinger in a second. Motion to accept the operations report as delivered by board.
Finance.
Finance report as delivered by Board Member Lewis, moved by Mr. Sans, second by Mr. Salinger. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next, we have operation. Mr. Jackson?
Good evening. Operations Committee meeting began October 14th, 2015 at approximately 5:00 p.m. Board members present were Mr. Phil Selinger and Mr. Marquis Sequil Lewis. Unfortunately, myself and Ms. Carter were unable to attend. The agenda consisted of painting calendar schedule of prioritized jobs. This was something discussed in the August board meeting. And if this list can be a continuation and add-on, so we can have up-to-date list on prioritized jobs in the district. The committee also was updated on potential water damage sites. And the next agenda item was a report on paneling in the schools for air conditioning, and the school locations were going to be Peshon Avenue School, Shabazz High School, and Abington School for sub-panel installation. Basically what that was, this was an issue that we've talked about in a few previous committee meetings. Basically what a sub-panel is going to do is add additional electrical current so that classrooms can be equipped with air conditioning units. We were also updated on security. The committee was also updated on security incidents at the following locations: Speedway Avenue School and ECC West. Early Childhood Center West, excuse me. And that concludes my report for operations.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Lewis.
I just want to add to Ms. Jackson, myself and board member Selinger was at Speedway Elementary School when the school was locked down because of possible threats. And Ms. Carter, I'm sorry. And Ms. Carter was there, and I just wanted to commend our security team and the school administration for awesome lockdown. It was done in good manner, and they kept the parents and the children calm and safe. So I just wanted to commend our security team and the staff at both schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Any other board members? Is there a motion to accept Mr. Jackson's report?
So moved.
I have Mr. Lewis on the move. Who's second? I think Ms. Carter seconded. Motion to accept the Operations Committee report is delivered by Board Member Jackson, moved by Mr. Lewis, second by Ms. Carter. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next, we have the review of agenda for public meeting.
I have a question. Is the item that Ms. Bashford Richardson referenced, the Resolution 8640, is that on the agenda? Because I didn't see it.
I think it's taken on.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. Okay. So I guess the only added item, we would have the legal item we would add that we talked about in executive session.
I would like to reserve a placeholder for a potential SPED item in the event that we end up having one. I'm not sure right now whether we will or won't, but I don't want the opportunity to pass.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Baskerville.
So I think we also would need a placeholder for a resolution that we're going to be at some point later in this meeting asking the board to consider regarding a charter school resolution for the delegate assembly, the NJSBA delegate assembly.
Yes.
Okay. It'll be explained when we get to it. It's okay.
Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Move it.
I have Ms. Fonseca.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lewis. This is a motion to accept the agenda with the following additions. Placeholder for the possible special education finance item, placeholder for the board-generated resolution running charter schools, and the placeholder for the legal item that we discussed in executive session. Moved by Ms. Fonseca, second by Mr. Lewis. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries. The agenda for next week is fixed.
Board members, let me remind you that you need to vote physically.
Yeah, that's what they want. Which they go to superintendent's report.
Is it coming out?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Next, we have a superintendent report, but we are first going to start off with the overtime OFAC report. Ms. Rodriguez?
Good evening again. As the board knows, we have another OFAC report that was issued to us in August 2015. Let me just highlight the reason we're bringing it to the board now in October. I sought personally a 30-day extension from the OFAC committee, the director, Steve Hoffman. I did that pursuant to email. I asked for the 30-day extension because the board had questions with respect to clarity on the findings, and we're entitled to at least have an understanding of exactly what we're held accountable for. So there was no dereliction in our not bringing it to you, but it was a approved 30-day extension. Ms. Rodriguez is going to present the report. Let me highlight for the community, if I may, we are not able to post this on our website until after we first present it to the board, so there are no copies available tonight. This will be presented following this meeting on our website, as we do previously. And again, to the board members, as you are aware, it's a two-step process. Tonight, we're going to present the report to you, and then at 30 days thereafter, we will present to you the CAP, the corrective action plan, to support this. We're presenting tonight asking for you to approve this by vote next week for the approval of the presentation only. What I'm asking Ms. Rodriguez to do, as we've done in the past, and also for the benefit of our community members who don't have a report, the board does have a copy in your packet. Ms. Rodriguez will read the short executive summary, then she'll read the highlighted, underlined findings, and the brief recommendation that has been given to us from OFAC. Ms. Rodriguez?
So, good evening, board and community. In your packets, you're going to find two documents. One, you're going to find the copy of the OFAC report. And second, you're going to find an email that I included where you will see that in April of 2014, it came to the attention of the talent department that we had employees who had been abusing the overtime process. So we requested support from the state, which these findings in the OFAC report are part of that audit and provide good information that we were aware were concerns already. So we had started the process of addressing many of the issues in this report back in April of 2014, and we will be updating you on all of those processes in the November board meeting when we present the CAP. So I will now go to the OFAC report. And again, you do have the email, but we're going to review the OFAC report. So it's Newark Internal Audit Unit Overtime Audit Fiscal Years 2012 through 2013 and 2013 through 2014, August 2015. Executive Summary. The Newark Internal Audit Union has conducted an audit of district overtime expenditures for fiscal years 2012, 2013, and 2013, 2014. The purpose of the audit was to determine that overtime is properly authorized, documented, and paid for hours actually worked and calculated properly in accordance with union contracts, district policies, and applicable regulations. In addition, the audit was designed to evaluate the district's current policies and procedures. The audit included a review of overtime payments, current policies, union contracts. As a result of the audit, the following deficiencies were noted. The district overpaid 8 employees and an amount totaling $10,922.34 for duplicate hours. The district failed to provide supporting documentation for overtime payments totaling $56,619. Hours subject to overtime pay were calculated incorrectly for 1 employee. The district did not complying with its policy that all overtime be pre-approved in writing. Overtime was not always paid within the contractually required time frame. Timesheets were often missing required signatures. Overtime was not calculated correctly for Local 32. Now we're going to go to the detailed findings. This is on page 5. Number 1, the district overpaid 8 employees in the amount totaling $10,922.34 for duplicate hours. During the fiscal year of 2012-2013, employee number 12428 was overpaid a total of $719.19 as a result of 10 hours of overtime being duplicated on the employee's timesheet. During fiscal year 2013-2014, overpayments to 7 employees totaling $10,203.15 were noted. The overpayments were the result of 174 duplicate hours on the employees' timesheets. Recommendation. The auditors recommended that timesheets are reviewed to ensure that no dates or hours have been duplicated. The district should investigate the feasibility of moving from the current manual overtime processing system to an electronic system to reduce calculation errors. Number 2, the district failed to provide supporting documentation for overtime payments totaling $56,619. The auditors were not provided supporting documentation for overtime expenditures, timesheets, in fiscal year 2012-2013 for 10 individuals totaling $50,316, and for 4 individuals totaling $6,303 for fiscal year 2013-2014. Recommendation, the auditors recommend that the district retain all overtime supporting documentation in accordance with current state of New Jersey records retention regulations. Number 3, hours worked were not calculated properly for one member of the Service Employees International Union Local 617 during fiscal year 2013-2014. The auditors reviewed 16 pay periods for this employee and determined that the employee was overpaid $1,610. The required hours worked did not meet the 40 hours needed before payment of overtime. Sick, personal, or vacation hours were inappropriately included in the calculation of hours worked. Recommendation, the auditors recommend that the district standardize work hours for each functional department to provide coverage as needed. Start and end times should be reflective of the number of hours needed to satisfy the standard work hours and the additional hours necessary to reach the 40 hours for overtime pay. Work hours should clearly indicate whether they are AM or PM. The rate of pay should be based on the hours worked by each individual. Proper calculation of standard work hours and overtime hours should consider all hours worked and exclude non-work hours such as vacation, sick, personal, and holiday time. All persons working in excess of 40 hours per work week, should be paid overtime. The district did not, number 4, the district did not comply with its policy that overtime be pre-approved in writing. District policy requires that all overtime shall be pre-approved in writing or by issuance of a building use permit signed by the Executive Director of Facilities Management or his designee. Overtime is to be authorized by a properly executed overtime request form, Exhibit 3. Auditors reviewed 195 timesheets for fiscal years 2013-2014, and only 1 executed overtime request form was provided. Pre-authorization is an effective tool in controlling overtime costs. Recommendation. The auditors recommend that the district comply with the existing policy and all overtime should be pre-authorized in writing. Emergency after-hours overtime should be authorized in writing the following business day. Authorization should be filed in a manner available to support overtime payments. Number 5. Overtime was not always paid within the contractually required time frame. 2 of the district's union contracts, Local 68 and Local 617, require that payment for overtime be made to employees within 30 days of working overtime. Local 32 requires that the hours worked should be paid within 15 days from the date the pay period shall end. The auditors noted the following payments that were not made within the contractually required time frame. In fiscal year 2012-2013, 36 out of 238 payments were reviewed. 15% were in violation of the required payment timeframe. In fiscal year 2013-2014, 85 out of the 195 payments reviewed, 44%, were in violation of the required payment timeframe. Recommendation. The auditors recommend that the district adhere to the contractual requirements and make payments in a timely manner. Number 6, overtime reporting forms, timesheets, which document employee overtime hours were not always approved for payment by the required supervisors. Overtime timesheets are required to have all of the data necessary for review and approval prior to the payment to the employee, including dates, hours worked, location, and nature of work performed. These forms are also required to be signed by the preparer, location administrator, service department administrator, and the department administrator. During the course of the review, auditors noted that the signatures were missing from the timesheets submitted for review. Location administrator signature was missing from 115 out of 238, 48% of timesheets reviewed in fiscal year 2012-2013, and from 97 out of the 195, 50% of the timesheets reviewed for fiscal year 2013-2014. Service Department Administrator signature was missing from 67 out of 238, 28% of the timesheets reviewed for fiscal year 2012-2013, and from 25 out of the 195, 13% of the timesheets reviewed for fiscal year 2013-2014. Recommendation. The auditors recommend that the district stipulate the required signatures needed in its policies and procedures in order to process any overtime request for payment, that no payments are made without proper authorization. Number 7, overtime was not calculated correctly for Local 32 employees. The district agreed to a memorandum of agreement with Local 32 effective July 1st, 2008. Part of the agreement was that overtime for union staff would be paid after 40 hours worked rather than the previous contact requirement that it had be paid after 35 hours worked. Work on weekends and holidays would continue to be paid at time and 1/2. Auditors tested overtime payments to 3 Local 32 employees in fiscal year 2012-2013 and 3 employees in fiscal year 2013-2014. In all cases, overtime was paid for all hours after 35 hours worked rather than the 40 hours. It appears that overtime is being calculated incorrectly for all Local 32 staff, resulting in significant overpayments. Recommendation. The district must follow the terms of the memorandum of agreement and calculate the overtime for Local 32 employees based on hours worked in excess of 40 hours per week.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Fonseca, and then Mr. Jackson.
Please.
I just want to first say that it saddens me every time we have to come to a meeting and hear information like this, because we're the ones that have to sit in front of the community, and we're the ones that get yelled at by the community for things like this that we are not responsible for. So it's very frustrating, and as a taxpayer in this city, it frustrates me even more. I have a few questions. I don't want them to be answered right now. I want everything in writing, if possible, please, Chair. First and foremost, who's responsible? Who monitors this? Will we be reimbursed by those employees at their gross rate? Don't we have like some type of, I don't know how we do the payroll system here, but at my job, it's through ADP, and anytime anyone submits for overtime, their timesheet needs to be verified with that sheet. So I don't understand how we approve overtime without having backup information. I don't know what unions we have, but that's something we need to look into ASAP and let them know, if we don't have backup, you are not getting paid, that period. What action was taken against those employees that put in, I'm assuming they put in for the overtime, what action was taken on them? Because if I know that my check has a few $100s more, it's my responsibility to go inform payroll, but payroll's also responsible for verifying that, because I know if it was the person in charge that had that problem, they would look into it ASAP.
Also, I don't understand how we're receiving this now when an annual audit is supposed to be conducted. So we're getting information about 2012 to 2013 and then 2013 to 2014 when we are obligated to have an annual audit conducted, and they're supposed to audit everyone's time. So why we getting this in 2015, October 20th, is beyond my understanding. And I know I'm new to the table, but I think I know all this stuff very well. And lastly, we're in a deficit, right? So I know we're trying to do everything that we need to do to clean up the deficit that we're in, and I know that several hands are in the midst of why we're in this deficit. We can't do anything about the past, but we can do something about the future, and it's our responsibility as a board to try to do everything that we can to regain local control. So in saying that, I say that this needs to be tightened up, because if our kids are missing something, and we have people getting paid overtime, that's a major issue. Whether it's $10,000, whether it's $20,000, $50,000, every penny counts, because this is like totally unacceptable. And so I would like answers to all of this. I will be more than glad to email this, but this is so unacceptable. We just went through this situation with a teacher that wasn't here that got paid, and now it's being brought to our attention that we have people getting paid overtime that don't have backup for it. That's outrageous.
So we will look forward to your specific questions, and I agree with the thrust of your point. I want to size this problem because I think it might be useful to the board. What I think is an even bigger issue than the ones that are highlighted here is that in the fiscal year 2012, the district paid $8.3 million in overtime, and in fiscal year 13-14, it paid $4.5 million. So they've identified something in the order of $56 million that don't have appropriate documentation, and $56,000 that don't have appropriate documentation, and $10,000 that clearly were erroneously paid. But it's also, I think, an appropriate subject for this board's consideration, whether there is a way to organize our personnel in a way that does not lead to that kind of rather extraordinary expense.
Okay, so I suggest, thank you for your response, but my suggestion is that the payroll department, I don't know, I think you run that, right, Ms. Rodriguez?
So
Wait, I just want to finish my point, excuse me. I just asked you if you run the department, and then I just want to finish my point. Do you run that department?
So at the time that this report, I started in January of 2013, and when we started to look at the payroll department, we started to dig into some of these issues. Hence why in the spring of 2014, we were forced to terminate 3 employees where we did find that there was abuse, and we requested the support of the state, because I completely agree with you. There were issues happening in this department that we have started to address with some great new leadership with our Executive Director of Employee Services, and we did hire a new Director of Payroll who started this past spring, who is also addressing this. And one of the initiatives that we are putting in place, that we are piloting this fall, is automating this entire process. Because if we automate it, then it's not paper-based, and it becomes a much more a process in which we can hold better accountability for both the employee but also the supervisor. So we completely agree with you, and we are working to address these issues, and we have a cap that we will present next month that will share with you in more detail all of the steps we're taking to address these issues.
Okay, that's great. The reason why I asked the question is because the whole payroll department needs a refresher course on how it's supposed to work. Us getting this OFAC report and all of that, that's all, I get it, we're legally required to get that, but they need an entire refresher course. Like, this is not something to be played around with. This is money. We're trying to clean it up and tighten things up and make sure that we're able to have enough in our budget. So they need to be told, they need to write notes down, put Post-its on their computers. They got to figure it out. As a manager, I know in my job, that is this, it just wouldn't go down. It's just not acceptable. And I know we're a large district and there's a lot of employees, but they need to have notes posted in front of them so they can make it right.
Mr. Jackson?
Yet again.
Ms. Jackson?
Can I ask a quick question?
Why?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my head around all this, and I'm trying to understand why are we having all these problems out of employee services, all these problems out of payroll, all these problems out of personnel, and all these problems out of the chief talent office. Why are we having all these issues? For one, I'm confused. For one, and I need an answer for this. With overtime, the district is going to tell me that there's no automated system. People sign in, and a paper is signed, and then that is submitted. So the supervisor then signs off on an employee's overtime sheet, per se. That then is submitted to who, and then who approves that paper to put it into the system to pay that employee. Because, I mean, somebody dropped the ball. So, you know, I'm confused because, you know, related back to I can speak from my personal experience. When you went to do overtime, not only did you sign the paper, but you actually clocked in to account for those hours. And I know Newark Public Schools has Chronos. So again, I'm not understanding. And, you know, to your point, Commissioner Cerf, I'm not quite sure what you were getting at when you said 8.3 million in overtime down to 4.5 million in overtime. I would see that to mean that we spent 8.3 million in overtime, and who's to say that that wasn't legit spending? And who's to say that this 4.5 million wasn't legit spending as well? Again, I'm just lost. Again, somebody's dropping the ball. Is this related to the Tiffany Hardrick incident? Because that was an issue not too long ago as well. Again, under present company. Not you, superintendent, but people who still remain over these departments. So, you know, bottom line, it's unacceptable.
So,
you have employee services, you have payroll, you have chief talent, and you have personnel. We have all these departments, but yet stuff is getting through the cracks. I'm not understanding it.
Let me try.
It's gross negligence. Hold on, let me finish. It's gross negligence. It wouldn't occur anywhere else. Okay, and it needs to stop. And you know, we need to. I'm tired of having empty promises. I'm tired of hearing all these reports. And something needs to be done. This is totally ridiculous. And it's also illegal because now this is theft of services. You're stealing from this Newark public school system.
I'm leaving at 8:30.
Ms. Hitchcock?
So, I mean, you know, get attitude, but...
So I just wanted to make sure, are there any questions on the actual report that we can answer? If not, then I would ask, we need to present you with the cap that will put in our corrective action plan. But is there anything that we can address on the report, which is only what tonight was about for the presentation?
Ms. Carter and then Mr. Lewis.
Ms. Rodriguez mentioned the 3 individuals. So the first question is, were they included in this report, the 3 that are with the prosecutor's office?
No, those individuals my team identified, and that's why we requested that the state do an audit and support us in this work. And so we terminated those 3 individuals.
So do we know how much money those 3 individuals who intentionally stole time, how much they owe the district back, and when we are due to receive payment?
Well, they're at the prosecutor's office, so therefore it's still in legal action. So at this point, there's no
So do we know how much money, though?
I don't know off the top of my head. We can look into that.
Do we know a roundabout?
No, I don't.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis?
So, Madam General Counsel, who's actually going to prepare this corrective action plan?
The corrective action plan would be prepared by probably with consultation from legal's office as well as with Ms. Rodriguez's offices. And the and of course our auditors.
Folks, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to take this. There is these personal. Excuse me. I'm now talking. These personal attacks on individuals who are in the room is inappropriate, and it's particularly inappropriate in these circumstances. When this issue was identified by this office, she invited the OFAC to come in and do a comprehensive investigation. She referred the cases to the prosecutor's office. She inherited a system that was primitive and is now being radically upgraded. So it may be a lot of fun to talk about people in a negative way and to throw personal comments around between members of the audience. I personally want you to know I think it's inappropriate.
So,
Mr. Lewis?
so let me so I wanted to reason why I asked that question is because I agree with my colleagues. This is the second incident from this office. And we're looking to gain local control. Even when you look at the CUSAC scores in that office, the scores have went down. So I'm asking the district, Mr. Superintendent, if you not frustrated enough, but if you can answer this for me. If we are serious about gaining local control, and we have 2 incidents coming out of this office and which affect us in CUSAC, are we as a district prepared to implement some change in this area to ensure that our services will improve?
So, first of all, I can absolutely assure you that the matter covered in this report will have zero impact on either CUSAC or local control. Secondly, the trend line here of identifying a problem, developing a response to it, if anything, would be viewed as a positive.
Any other board members? Mr. Hassan?
Yeah, so I think everybody's already kind of made the points, but something that really stood out to me, obviously, was the amount of spending as it pertains to overtime. Last year when we had our budget committee meetings with the district, there were 2 specific areas that we saw that we actually overran in the budget, and that was other compensation and salary. So with just seeing the amount of money that we're spending on overtime, I would really like to have some information in terms of what those drivers are for the amount of money we're spending in overtime. Is it because we don't have the proper staffing in those respective areas? Like what's really driving us to that point? Because I would like to see that decrease as we move forward, especially considering the financial condition of the district right now. And again, not looking to point blame or anything here, but just looking to get a solution for it as we move forward, because I don't want to revisit it again at the end of the year when we really start having
Madam
budget
Chair,
discussions.
point of order, sorry. Could we please stick to the agenda item, which is the report, and not a discussion on legitimate overtime?
I'm not asking
May
for a
we do that?
response, but Mr. Lewis, if you could obviously work as the chairman of finance, I felt it was important for me to address that at this point in time, since we were in fact looking at this information that was presented to us. No need for a response now, but if you could at a later date provide a report to our board on your findings, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Noted. Can we Madam Chair, through SBA, our next finance committee next month, finance committee, can we please put this on the agenda as something we could discuss?
Yes.
Next, we have our superintendent report.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know there's a lot to cover here, so I will be very brief before handing the microphone, metaphorically, over to SBA Wilson to talk about CUSAC in anticipation of the public meeting next week, and to also hand it over to Assistant Superintendent Leone, who's going to give a brief overview of the some work in curriculum and instruction, which will also be expanded upon at the next meeting. Let me just say, by way of introduction, since we last had an opportunity to meet, many of us were able to attend the event at the 350th, the sort of the launch of the 350th anniversary in Military Park. It was a terrific and well-organized event that really, I thought, brought the city together. I was so pleased to see so many people in this room who were able to attend. And as I said in my brief comments there, the Newark Public School System is all in on this project and all in to try to support the great work of the board and its president. Indeed, we are building a curriculum and taking other steps to try to support the work. I go to several schools a week, and I certainly do not mean to single out positives and to suggest there aren't many others I see, but I really so deeply believe that the sort of narrative of negativity that too often has accompanied the work in the district needs to end. There is so much great work underway. There are so many great teachers, so many great principals, so many great administrators, so many great initiatives that are underway. I was so pleased to hear the report of the program and instruction committee, the curriculum committee rather, about the math work that I know has been very, very, very deep, involving educators at all levels. I had the opportunity to go to William Horton. I better put my glasses on to go to William Horton this week to watch a partnership blossom with Google, to see Google expeditions. It was actually well covered in the news. It highlights a deep investment in technology. We talked about the amount of technology in the schools. I know that 11,000 Chromebooks have been purchased and put in the schools. I believe that it's measured in the hundreds of smart boards. One-to-one technology is certainly an aspiration, but these are structured so that students have technology and they are passed from classroom to classroom. Obviously, more is better, but it was a very exciting thing to hear about and witness and participate in the partnership with Google, and also to participate at the Digital Learning Initiative at the Bolden Center, where our tech leads in the schools gathered to talk about ways to bring the wisdom of several large license agreements we have arranged for our students with organizations as varied as Newsela and Smart Amp, and several other providers to give our students access to technological, not only resources, but learning. Among the schools I visited, I happened in the same, over the last stretch of time, to go to JFK and New Jersey Regional Day, both of whom offer really impressive services to some of our highest needs students. I was so grateful to be able to spend time with Dr. Johnson Green, as well as Ms. Adebato at Regional Day, and to see the level of care and compassion and thoughtfulness that is reflected in schools that are working very closely with some of our disabled children and children who have particular learning needs. I was also grateful to have had a chance to visit American history. I know all of you know that Mr. Robert Gregory is transitioning into a assistant superintendent role. The work that's going on, this comes from a former history teacher, the work that is going on in that school, and there's an interim principal, Ms. Crespo, if I got that right, who certainly impressed me with her knowledge of literally child by child by child, where they were, what the plans were, and the amount of work that is needed to differentiate instruction towards them. Very impressive. I've also had a chance to go to the Arts High School. I have looking forward, actually, I'm going to stop by tomorrow and see the healing exhibit that I am told is one of the more moving things that is to be seen here in our schools. I very much look forward to that. I'm sure that this will be mentioned in a moment, but November 5th, we are having a public meeting on the budget, and I encourage you, any and all members, to come and attend. It'll be a very extensive presentation, and I'm sure a lively discussion, and I just wanted to make sure that that is on people's calendars. Let me lastly say, in the interest of avoiding the appearance of rudeness, that I have a family matter I have to go attend to at 8:30, and so please forgive me as I get up and leave at that time. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, I blew my intro. Over to SBA Wilson to walk us through an update on Cusack. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the community. This evening, we will be providing an update on the Cusack Quality Single Accountability Continuum process as defined by New Jersey Department of Education. We will be talking about our SOA, Statement of Assurance, and our DIP, a District Improvement Plan. We will then transition into a presentation on our curriculum and instruction strategies for raising student achievement. NPS's NJ Cusack timeline. I refer you to the board in the back of the room. There are 5 areas in Cusack: fiscal management, governance, operations, instruction and program, and personnel. These 5 areas are areas in which all districts are reviewed in terms of their effectiveness, in terms of their efficiency, and in terms of their operations. In August, we shared with the community the state's results on the 2013-14 performance review, district performance review, or DPR, that we received. It was actually released on July 29th. Those documents, if they have not already been, will be posted on our website very shortly during the process of our board cycle this month. In September, we worked with the board committees, specifically in the areas of personnel, in the area of governance, and in the area of instruction and program. Those were the 3 areas in which the district did not score high performing, which means a score of 80 or above. Those committees worked both through September and their October cycle to develop and review district improvement plans and to discuss the SOA process. In October, we are presenting both the SOA and the improvement plan to the board in this formal process. There will be a resolution for the board to accept both of these items, and between the 1st and the 15th of November, we will upload these items onto the New Jersey Department of Education website. They will be reviewed by the department, and at that point, probably about 6 months from November, which we anticipate could be about early spring of 2016, the Department of Education will conduct what they call an interim assessment. In other words, they will bring a county team, not necessarily Essex County, but a county team to come in and review our current status based on our district improvement plan. There's one piece I want everyone to remember. Cusack is a 3-year process. Annually, we do an SOA. So tonight, you will hear about our SOA, which is being done in 15-16, reviewing documentation in the 14-15 school year. You will also hear about our district improvement plan as a result of our last visit in 2014, which will review our status from 2014 until now and plans we have to go forward. I know it's a little bit confusing, but it sort of all comes together. So we talked about the Statement of Assurance, which is actually a statement developed annually by the district. It provides details about the preceding year, in this case, 2014-15, and it really involves round about 50 items. They are in all 5 areas, and they sum up to a percentage score for each category and an overall score for the district. Once again, the 5 areas are instruction program, fiscal, operations, governance, and personnel. This year, we have reviewed our 2014-15 areas and have looked in the area of instruction and program. There are 5 indicators. These indicators, we believe that we have met and have evidence to indicate that we are actually able to produce all of the kinds of things necessary. Remember, the SOA is a subset of the district performance review. So in the district performance review in the area of instruction and program, there are significant indicators associated with academic achievement. When you complete the SOA, they remove those academic achievement pieces and leave things like the technology, things like do we have a curriculum? Do we have those kinds of things? So the operational things in instruction and program, we believe we can meet all 5 and therefore score 100. In the area of fiscal management, there are in fact 10 indicators. We believe that we can meet 9 of those 10 and score 90. The one indicator in fiscal management that we believe will be problematic for us is confirming orders. That is the unauthorized purchase of services, equipment, or whatever else we may purchase prior to the completion or issuance of a purchase order. That is something that we continue to struggle with. I will say that we've reduced the amount, but we still have to work on it because it's not allowed. And if we have 1, we lose that indicator, which is, you can see, is worth 10 points. In the area of governance, we have all 10 indicators, and we believe that we can meet all 10 based on our record in the 14-15 school year. And we believe that if we were to be reviewed today on that data, we would have 100%. In the area of personnel, once again, there are 5 indicators. The indicator associated with personnel records is not one that is probably judged in this area, and we believe that we can make 100% if we were to use only those 5 indicators in personnel. In operations, there are, I think, 20. And we lost points on one area. Of course, now I've forgotten what it is. In the area of operations. Lizzie, do you happen to have it? Okay. Give me a copy. I'll review it in a minute. I can't exactly remember what it was. Oh, I do know what it was. It was our score on, I'm getting old, NJ Smart. And our error rate has to be less than 1%. Last year, our error rate was not at less than 1%. I am happy to say that this year, we have just recently submitted our NJ Smart data, and we are at a less than 1% error rate. So that concludes our review of the Statement of Assurance, and that will be submitted to the Department of Education on November 15th. We will discuss this once again at the board meeting next week. And at that point, when the board has acted, the total Statement of Assurance document will be available online for community review. District Improvement Plan. The District Improvement Plan has been developed by NPS, and it responds to 3 very specific areas. If you look at our scores for 13-14, I want you to remember that, 13-14. In the area of governance, we scored 72%. In the area of personnel, we scored 60%. And in the area of instruction and program, we scored only 58%. That is the entire spectrum of all indicators. That means not just the SOA subset, but all of the indicators. And it was for the 13-14 school year. We are now in school year 15-16. So technically, a year and a half, almost 2 years have gone by. So we have made some significant progress. You've already seen that in some of the things we've said in the SOA, and you will see it in our district improvement plan. We describe in our improvement plan strategies and steps to help us improve in those specific areas where we were less than high performing. We also outline future evidence that will help us to demonstrate that we have in fact improved in these areas. So, in the area of governance, to the left, you will see that there are two indicators, 3A and 3B. To summarize them, it means that we did not have written policies for financial planning, fiscal, and budget goals. This was a review in 13-14 by a county team that indicated that they did not see where we were able to clearly match our financial planning processes with our strategic initiatives. What strategies will we use to improve, and what current strategies will ensure that our financial planning processes are aligned with our priorities? We'll have a strategic plan that's going to support those priorities. We will have staff development, which has been ongoing. Both Dr. Perkins and several others have conducted extensive staff development. Principals, teachers, and employees have received training. And we will work on our New Jersey-wide, statewide assessments. We will outline priorities and relevant initiatives aligned with our GAP codes, which is the accounting principles that are used in New Jersey for all our future budget proposals. We will provide professional development to educators to address areas in which student performance needs to improve, because we know we need to improve student performance, specifically in the area of instruction and program. If we are to improve student performance, it must be one of our strategic initiatives, and it also must be aligned with where we spend our money. Because if you are going to ensure that you make progress with student achievement, you have to support that, whether it be with resources such as of the human kind or whether it be with financial resources. The SOA number 4, and you will see that the state in a DPR goes back and forth between indicators and between the SOA document. So it's sometimes a little inconsistent. SOA number 4, we had board meeting minutes. There was inconsistent timing for review of our meeting minutes. Since 2013-14, we have purchased and implemented Electronic School Board, which is a web-based system that allows us to have a timely review of board meeting minutes. It allows us to be able to ensure that our minutes are prepared within the window that the state requires, and that information is ready and accurate for our board to use. SOA 7 submits sign of, submits and of employee contracts. So there are several people in the district, specifically senior level staff, the superintendent, assistant deputy superintendents, and the SBA, who need to have a contract. Contracts have been in place every year for these individuals. There is some discussion between us and the county of the date of when those contracts are due. There's sort of a silent date that says exactly on July 1st. Our hiring, discussion of contracts, working out details have not allowed us to meet that particular deadline, but I do not want anybody to think we did not have contracts. So those are the areas in governance. In the area of personnel, we have SOA 1, which talks about job descriptions and appointments. So we needed to ensure that we had highly qualified teachers, and we had to have records that indicate that those teachers are teaching within their certificated areas. In a way to do that, our current strategies, once again, since 13-14, have been we've conducted an assignment audit of instructional staff. We've enrolled our educators in what's a provisional pathway program to facilitate their ability to acquire the appropriate certifications. We've established checks and balances designed to ensure appropriate assignment upon employment and during their tenure. So we have to continually keep looking at this and reviewing it. Schools cannot move instructors or teachers to places outside of their certification because it will limit the district's ability to meet this particular indicator. In the area of our personnel files, which we kind of talked about earlier, and our health records, we did not have documents filed appropriately, or we had documents that were not collected. So we've done a number of things since that. We've made a decision to invest in the upload of new personnel files as of March 2015. We've secured a vendor to establish storage and virtual physical personnel files. And I want to point out to the audience that this was a project that we began last school year. It's not beginning now because CUSAC scores were released in July and we're now doing them. We began this imaging project in 5 areas: the accounts payable, HR joined for employee records. We're looking at it in procurement. We looked at it in our grants area and one other area. So that was something that was ongoing, but imaging takes a significant investment of dollars. So we've got to look at that. We're partnering with the DOE to engage in a practice relating to the retention acts. We have to destroy some documents and have not had the latitude to do so as a state-operated district. We're going to go and work with the DOE and see if we can get that done. And we are auditing the document that is most critical to the review of our personnel files, the I-9, which is an actual immigration document that all employees are required to have. And we are putting procedures and appropriate corrective action in place to ensure that we will have those documents for all employees and be able to provide them on demand. The major area that we will have to work on is the instruction and program area. So we have several indicators here. The first indicator 1, is tied to the inadequate performance and progress on NJ Ask and language arts literacy. We talked earlier today about the SOA and how they pull out the academic indicators. Well, here they are in the district improvement plan. They are a significant part of our scoring in that area. I think there are some 36 points of the 100 that are related to academic achievement, because we got about a 62, 64, if I remember correctly. Those were the operational pieces. So we scored highly in instruction and program in those areas. We have a lot of work to do in our academic area. So since 2013-14, we've continue to improve the curricula supports and training to ensure that we have college readiness standards, and you'll hear that in Mr. Leon's presentation very shortly. We support the work of teacher teams through one of our leadership institutes for teacher teams. What's the acronym of LIFT? We have a Principal Leadership Institute. We have a Digital Leadership Institute, and all of these work with specific categories of employees to improve performance. We're using a universal design for learning to ensure that all of our students can access rigorous content. And we're going to develop, most of you have been familiar with the last strategic plan we had called Great Expectations. We will be developing a new strategic plan which will involve multiple stakeholders as we did before. It's a significant endeavor, and we want to meet multi-year goals. DPR 6, which is specifically in the area of science. 70% of our students did not reach their proficiency on the science assessment, which is the assessment of skills and knowledge, which is known as NJ Ask. So we've got science educators since 2013-14 participating in statewide NGSS gap analysis. What does NGSS mean, Dr. Perkins?
It's the newly adopted standards from the state, the next generation science standards.
Thank you. An analysis project to begin to transition our New Jersey adoption of that standard, because that's going to involve an overhaul of our curriculum, an overhaul of our teaching aids. How are we going to get students to move in the area of science and to support the work of science teacher teams through the Leadership Institute for Teacher Teams? Once again, LIFT. DPR 7. This has to do with graduation rates through the New Jersey High School Proficiency Assessment, what was originally known as HESPA. We did not meet the minimum high school graduation rate via HESPA of 80%, which would have allowed us to have points in this area. We offer new online courses for students to earn credit. We've provided trainings for high school teachers to improve instruction. We continue to support acceleration academies to assist overage and undercredited students. We've done things to continue our transfer schools. We have 2 schools which have been designed to assist students who have not experienced in the traditional environment, have not experienced success in the traditional environment. And we continue to support better curricula in math and literacy. So if you look at the current, the consistent stream that runs through those strategies, it is those children who are left behind that we are trying to scoop up and bring to success with graduation through the main normal pipeline, but providing them alternative methods. So there's a lot of work been done in that area, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it as we go through the year. DPR 18, this is the one where we talk about the use of technology. And based on the visit we received from the county team, we were told that we did not have sufficient technology in the classroom. Now, does that technology mean, does that technology mean one-to-one? No, it doesn't. But we have made a significant investment in devices to help support PARCC. But are those devices only going to be used when the PARCC test comes around? No. We're going to use those 10,000 new devices we put in 14-15, once again, after 13-14. We've launched a digital learning initiative, and we are providing instructional strategies surrounding technology. Those are the things that we've done. That's the dip that we will be presenting in the 3 areas, and that is the SOA. Let me pass on to Mr. Leon, my colleague, who will talk to us about NPS curriculum, instructional strategy.
Mr. Superintendent, Madam President, and members of the board, the superintendent has asked in this portion of his report for me to actually draw an arc, if you will, of things that we've actually done in the district, things that we are currently doing, and where we are actually going. So in the Newark Public Schools curriculum and instruction strategy, there are 3 paths that have actually been designed for college and career readiness. The first one, training and supports teachers and school leaders. The second, excellent classroom curricula and teacher instruction. The third, understanding student learning and progress. The goal of the college and career readiness standard is, in its most basic form, a matriculation of our students in either a 2-year, 4-year, or a trade school after graduating from high school without remediation. The chairperson of the Program and Instruction Committee has already reported that at last week's meeting, she and Member Carter were at the Program and Instruction Committee meeting where what the superintendent asked us to do was present an example of a school that is demonstrating the type of work that needs to be occurring in every single one of our classrooms across all particular grades and in every school. And we were able to invite Benjamin Franklin School to actually join us in this presentation. So they went into greater detail about 30 minutes last week, and what the superintendent has requested of them, and what the two members of the board have articulated this evening is a desire to have them as a part of the presentation next week, and the superintendent has ordered so. So next week, as Valerie presents information with regards to the DIP, and I get into this ARC, one of the things that we will do at the start of my presentation is ask the two teachers to present for you the work, the incredible work, the very impressive work that has actually already occurred in one of our schools as the standard that we would look to other schools to build on. The college and career readiness standard that we have set, that bar is very, very high, as has been shared a couple of years ago to the board. The Chicago Consortium of School Research has identified grades 3, 6, and 9 as three critical grades towards the identification of children who eventually wind up dropping out from high school or schools, and the need for interventions to actually occur at all of the grade levels, but in particular focusing on those 3 grades to begin to address the unfortunate, inevitable reality that research has shown. The slide that you see before you right now articulates in grades 4, 7, and 11 the amount of work and the demand that exists on the students that are actually in our schools and across the country. So if you work with me from grade 4 in the area of English language arts, the expectation is for a 4th grader to write an opinion that is supported with reason. As they develop through the grades in grade 7, we would want them to write arguments to support claims with clear reasons and relevant evidence. By grade 11, we want this exact same student to write arguments to support claims in an analysis of substantive topics or texts using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. Similarly, in the area of mathematics, we want this student by grade 4 to make and interpret tables and line graphs. We would want them by grade 11 to find probabilities of compound events using organized list tables, tree diagrams, and simulation. Finally, as they are going through their high school years and by the 11th grade, we would want them to use the mean and standard deviation of data set to fit into a normal distribution and to estimate population percentages. If we are talking about children getting into college, that is not what we are talking about. We are actually talking about students getting into college and doing what children right now that are perhaps in our elementary schools, students who are in our high schools, don't realize when they actually get into college. And that is to complete it. That is to complete it, and more importantly, to actually enter into their freshman year in college, not taking a remedial course. How are we going to do that? Well, we identified a number of leadership institutes. And so the first path that we have are the training of teachers and our school leaders. In the summer of 2011, this district moved in a fashion unlike ever before from compliance-driven professional development for principals that was focused very deep and very wide across every single area that is important to school leaders in schools, to a very focused and intentional move towards creating and building transformational leaders in our respective schools. The first area was in our Principals Leadership Institutes, which had historically been about a 2-week time period during the month of August But as indicated in 2011, that did change arguably for the better. Every month, we would actually have meetings. So that year of 2011 was an articulation to our school leaders of what were the major shifts as we were moving from the New Jersey core core curriculum content standards to the Common Core state standards that we currently have throughout this state. The development of the Vice Principal's Leadership Institute moved to a very centralized fashion, and I'm not sure if this committee has been presented with the work that we have actually generated during the course of this summer into this year, where we have actually focused each of the targeted institutes in particular areas along the 10 objectives that I know that have been shared with this body before. The development of the Leadership Institute for Teacher Teams occurred last year, and we strongly believe that this is a leverage point that will provide and prove inevitably that the focus that we are talking about in the second path will be alive and sure in all of our schools. From the lift, this digital learning initiative was created where a cohort of teachers from across various schools last year began to do the type of work that we are highlighting with the Benjamin Franklin school. It's not something that is occurring in every school currently, but definitely the move as we create an institute from the DLI, we see and forecast that this work will be seen and realized in every school. So we have presented to you in the past the 10 objectives that were developed during the course of last year and are in full effect this year. What is important to know about those 10 objectives is that they provide focus on 3 particular areas, so that the work that we are doing to ready our children for the challenges of college and career readiness, first and foremost in the area of rigor, the development of our teams, and then this focus on social emotional learning, so that we are making sure that either during our student support team meetings or in the restorative circles that began in a number of elementary schools and then was profoundly and aggressively developed in the secondary schools, begin to provide opportunities to address needs that our teachers actually have to better service our children. The second path, excellent classroom curricula and teacher instruction. We know that the person who is in front of the most significant heartbeat in our respective classrooms are critical to the work. So the selection of our teaching staff is critical towards the resolutions ultimately at the end that everyone has on this board with regards to making sure that our schools are educating our children and doing it well. However, in the implementation of what they are doing, so once we have designed the right strategy for hiring folks, what it is that they're doing becomes extremely important. So in this district, we have taken a demarcation from what we have done in the past. Historically, a body of teachers would have been tapped, and they would have been responsible for writing curriculum that then we would find and adopt a textbook to utilize. Perhaps we did not necessarily do a great job of explaining to everyone that this movement towards the Common Core state standards would require a different approach. There were no textbook companies that were out there that were really developing the type of material that our students would actually need in our respective classrooms. So what we did do was, instead of creating curriculum where curriculum did not exist, we actually piloted a number of learning opportunities for children that we felt very, very confident that it would yield the type of student achievement that would be necessary given where our students were and where we actually wanted them to go. So in the area of English language arts, we adopted core knowledge in the kindergarten to second grade span, expeditionary learning in grades 3 through 8, and in our secondary schools, collections it's important to know that in the area of English language arts, the implementation of core knowledge from the listening and learning strand to the actual skill strand provides for us, if you haven't had an opportunity to see this in any of our K-2 schools, with an opportunity of providing children with literature that is perhaps very, very difficult on the onset, but our students are demonstrating in our schools their ability to not only accept the challenge, but inevitably surpass it. The bridge between what is occurring K-2 to 3 to 8 is quite unique. The expeditionary learning curriculum that is actually being implemented in the district provides students with this project-based learning opportunity, and Franklin was able to model that for us last week, and I know that they will do the exact same this week. The collections series, as we're having students that are learning with the shifts that have occurred in the K through 8 years, we know that the units of study that are occurring in those respective grades is in fact an area where the district has moved towards, and we're looking forward to seeing the benefits of that work. The third path, understanding student learning and progress. So there are tools to understand students' paths towards college and career readiness, equipping schools with strategies to review student work and adjust future lesson plans to meet needs, offer interactive, rigorous student projects and tasks that demonstrate student learning, implement use of new technology devices to increase digital learning and understand students' work and progress in real time, develop year-long instructional plans to make benchmarks of progress, develop engaging student-driven lessons, and incorporate technology in lessons. I have heard during the course of this evening conversations with regards to the use of the Chromebooks and the actual number of Chromebooks that we have. I think it's really important to just highlight as an example, while accountability has been a word that we have focused on and used a lot during the course of these last couple of years, that moving away from kind of compliance driven has been one of the areas where we have been working diligently at addressing, as these Chromebooks did arrive in some instances a couple of days before the administration of the park assessment, that we noticed that in a number of schools that the Chromebooks would then go back into the slots where they were pulled from, and that's where they would remain. Last week, we were able to have an incredible experience that will be shared with you all next week, where a school decided that, guess what, the Chromebook was not a replacement of the paper pencil tests that students have historically taken into the district. During the course of this year in particular, I have personally seen across the schools that I supervise over the use of the Chromebooks, the way that they were intended as a tool to provide not only access and information to students, but for them to utilize it to be able to solve problems that for other reasons they did not think they were capable of solving. That is just technology. It is not a privileged item that they only get at certain portions in time. So I know that the superintendent, in visits that he has done with me to the schools that I supervise, as well as the schools that the assistant superintendents supervise across other networks, that there is a lot of work that we still need to do, but that there are samples of excellence that we can refer to, that upon tapping, that we will be able to maximize the good that we are seeing. As it relates to this work and the work that Caleb and his team has focused on, one of the things that we're going to do is make sure that a lot of information is in the hands of our families. So we know that the park was administered last year, and we know that there is information sharing that needs to occur so that our families are aware of how our students performed, as well as what interventions are going to be in place to assist them. So during the next couple of weeks, as we are moving forward towards the sharing of that data, we will on Monday's SAB share with our families that they need to contact their respective schools and speak with teachers in their schools so that they can actually understand, analyze the information, and then be able to assist in the work of correcting particular actions so that we are doing better for their children. There are 2 meetings that are occurring on November 24th is the first parent-teacher conference, and then the second one is on February 9th. And we definitely know that during those 6 hours from 1 to 7, we will make exerted efforts to share that information, as well as to provide opportunities for parents and family members to tap into the work that we are doing at respective schools. Caleb already had the first 3 items on the district's web as a resource. So there's a parent tab on the district's web that we will definitely refer parents to. The 4th one is added by the superintendent. This is a document that the New Jersey Department of Education has shared with him, and that he felt it extremely important for our families to have as well. And we will be posting it on the district web if it's actually not there already. This, in fact, concludes the superintendent's report.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Pascal Richardson?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Leon and everyone, because that was a lot of work and a lot of explaining. So we have, undoubtedly by now, everyone is aware that we have to have a strategic plan. So Superintendent, I think what folks are waiting for is to hear from you what the timeline and what the process for that will be. And I have another question, so I just want to ask them all. So that's one. What is the timeline in the process? If you don't know right this minute, when would you be giving us that? Because that is so linked to what to me is missing from the DIP, which is achievement benchmarks based on some realistic, incremental growth in student achievement. And I don't know how we do that in the absence, unless it was just we do something arbitrary, which we didn't do and shouldn't do. But we need a strategic plan to guide us, so we need to know when and how that's going to happen. And the other thing, and Dr. Perkins, I know, as we work together in the committee, I certainly said I would, try not to ever put you on the spot. But what I thought about that I had forgotten about is that in the September Program and Instruction Committee, I think I spent some time talking about the need for the DIP to contain a family engagement, a sort of a caretaker participation sort of a piece. That may not be the best wording for it, because we have certainly learned by now that student achievement is very much dependent upon family and family involvement, and that raising student achievement, that family involvement is critical to raising student achievement. And so I did ask you to, we talked about some possible ways of adding that to the DIP. So I would like to know what you did with that conversation. Did you have that conversation with anyone? Did it just stay in the room where we had it, or was there any further consideration of that?
Do you want to go first?
Well, why don't you go first, and then I'll pick up there. I have some answers. Yeah.
The shorter answer. So, yes, in response to your feedback, the DIP that was showed in the PowerPoint is just a high-level bullets of the longer version. The longer version does include the statement, the process will also seek to build caretaker and family member engagement in this work so that community members get an in-depth understanding of curriculum and expectations. So that high-level statement is there. To your earlier point, the details in terms of the actual process beyond what Assistant Superintendent Leon shared in terms of those meetings, that needs to be spelled out to your earlier point.
Okay, so can we discuss that then next month's meeting at the latest? But can we have something concrete that we're talking about by that point?
Yes.
Thank you.
So very quickly, you had actually raised at a meeting, maybe the last meeting, maybe the one before, the critical need to meet a legal requirement to have a strategic plan. It's actually, and you turned out to be right, and I learned a little bit that is a legal requirement. I will tell you that I don't want to confuse a formal strategic plan with having a series of strategic initiatives that are linked in a action plan. That very much exists, but to convert that into a document that is appropriately termed a strategic plan is something that you have spurred us to action. At the next meeting, I will be able to tell you in a greater level of detail what that is going to involve. It's going to involve community engagement with stakeholders, and it will be formalized in a plan that will substitute in for the plan that is currently in existence, which, as you know, is quite stale, at least as measured in years. So we are hard at work on that. I do also want to say that with respect to the DIP, and we live in a world of acronyms, but that it is a statutory term that very specifically addresses the need to describe what the district is going to do to address the very specific deficiencies that were identified in the last CUSAC review. So it is a very narrow document in some senses, and it actually is a wonderful vehicle for developing a strategic plan and to develop a comprehensive approach to guide student achievement. And so the document itself is actually quite narrow, and what happens is when the state comes back and looks at it, they want to see that the things you have identified, that collectively we have identified, that we are working on to address those specific deficiencies are in fact being addressed. Lastly, I want to underscore what I think was the heart of your point, which is that in program and instruction, 36% of the score in program instruction is based on absolutely concrete quantitative metrics having to do with things like the percentage of children who are demonstrating proficiency in reading, and so on. They're sort of non-negotiable. They're sort of math related. Were I crafting this from the outset, I would say that is the whole game and everything else is an input, but I'm not the author of the statute, so I agree that when we talk together about the strategic plan, it ought to be, 100% of our energy ought to be focused on what do we know about what will work to increase reading, graduation, math proficiency, science proficiency, specifically. So I agree that is the heart of the matter. And with that, and with my apologies, I need to, as I mentioned before,
Thank you.
leave. Thank you so much.
Any other board members? No. Next, we have public participation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the public participation portion of the meeting. As a reminder, time limits for all speakers are enforced. There's no sharing or granting of speaking time to others. Speakers must be present when their name is called. Speakers are required to give their names and addresses. The public participation portion of the business meeting is limited to 10 speakers on a first-come, first-served basis. Examples of unacceptable behavior that are not permitted include but are not limited to naming district employees and engaging in personal attacks, slurs, excessive loudness, calling out, yelling, generally disruptive behavior, attempting to disrupt the meeting, or inciting others to do so. Public participation in these meetings is intended to allow individual members of the public the opportunity to address the board and the administration on issues of public concern, not as a forum for two-way dialogue with the board members or district officials. The superintendent designee or Madam Chair may respond to questions either at the end of the session or responses may be forthcoming at a later time. The superintendent's designee or chair may interrupt any speaker or terminate any speaking privilege if the speaker's comments are disruptive or obscene. An individual may be cautioned that a personally directed statement may be slanderous or defaming, and the individual may be liable for his or her statements. Attempts to hijack or filibuster the proceedings, repeated interrupting or badgering the board members or district officials, repetitive and truculent speech, or disregard of rules of decorum are not tolerated and may subject the individual to removal from the meeting. If necessary, the meeting may be adjourned.
First speaker, Ms. Denise Cole.
Well, I really wanted to address my question to you to ask the superintendent, because my concern is, I understand we're working towards CUSAC and we're working towards our curriculum and getting local control back, but I'm concerned that we have public schools that are putting in applications to become charter schools, and the superintendent said that none of our schools would be closing, and I wanted him to give an explanation to that, or somebody give an explanation to that.
I am unaware of any such application.
From any of our public schools right now?
Yeah, I know.
We have no
Madam Chair.
direct information on this. I mean, obviously, we'll check to confirm. I don't know if any of our pedagogical staff has any further insight on this.
I know, Madam BA. I know we did hear that Yvonne did put in an application to try to become a charter.
Avon and another one, I think it was Hawthorne. Passion. Right, and Hawthorne. So, Madam Chair.
I don't have that information right now, and the superintendent isn't here, so I am going to say that we will have to look into that. All right, I'm hearing people are saying they've heard, people are saying they've been told. I will surely have the.
Well, that's why that's why I came to ask. I'm asking directly to the source.
So let me ask, Ashley. We have our deputy superintendent, Peter Turnanium. Do you have any information that you can clarify for?
I don't have any direct information to clarify. I'm aware of exactly what the community is reporting. We haven't been briefed on officially what the process is that they're undertaking. So I think it's important that we report back when we understand more about what BRIC is attempting to do.
Who is my question? Because at NJPAC, at a sitting on the stage, the superintendent said that we would lose no more public schools. So I just wanted clarity. And if you sit there and you say that you're aware, but you don't know what Rick is doing, and you the superintendent, and the policy reads that the public should be made aware, and the parents should be made aware of those schools to give consent, or either they had meetings, but that wasn't consent. Consent is you send something to the parents' home to make sure that they're aware, because I'm aware that some parents are not even aware. Like when we went up to pass out flyers, there was a lot of parents that wasn't even aware that that process was going on.
Ms. Cole?
And what I'm aware of is that what you described, ma'am, if I may, Ms. Holder, what you described is exactly what will need to happen. So if an application is put forth, then you're right, the staff would need to weigh in, parents need to weigh in, and the decision isn't ultimately made by the commissioner until the springtime. So I believe what you're expecting to happen would be what would need to happen for those schools for charter applications to move forward. Okay. So the process.
Ms. Cole, what we'll do is, and again, I've in previous occasions indicated when I put something on my to-do list, I'll follow through. So the follow back, Ms. Jackson, if I may. So the follow-through that I will have is I will obviously convey this to the superintendent. We will get the answers that you're seeking here. Again, as of this moment, I don't have any information to give you. I have no knowledge of this, but we'll make sure that we get the proper information
And
to you.
that's why I brought it to the board, because I don't go on he said, she said. I want to know directly from the source who said we wouldn't lose no more public schools to charters, what the issue is. My second question was to the Ms. Perello, please advise the superintendent or whoever that we are not children and he do not have to chastise us. If he does not like what is going on in the audience, he can ask you to please call to order, but I will not sit in the audience and be chastised by a grown man when I'm a grown woman and probably older than him.
Well,
so that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Next. Mr. Lewis?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify something Ms. Cole said. The district did not put in for a charter. Did not put in for that school to be a charter. Brick put in, which is Dominic Lee, put in for it to become a charter.
Who is Brick and what authorization do he have and where did he get it from?
Okay, so that's information that I'm going to make sure we clarify with you,
Right.
okay? Mr. Lewis, all right?
The reason why I brought it to the board is because he's only a manager being paid. He is not Newark Public School District. He is not the elected school board. So
Cole,
therefore, I want to clarify.
Ms. Hitchcock said she's going to investigate and then she will let us know and then we'll let you know. Next speaker, we have Mr. Linton Brown.
Good evening. I just have a few concerns this evening. I'll share the rest next week. My concerns are continuous from last school year. Again, we have students who are registered to SAT, and some of our schools do not have IDs for our students, and you cannot get admitted to our SAT sites without a school ID. So I want to, implore Mr. Haggerty and whomever else is responsible for school IDs in our school to ensure that if none other students in the buildings have IDs, at least our seniors and juniors who are taking the SATs. All students should really have them by this date, but we're going into November. The October 9th test is passed, but November 7th is right around the corner, and we want to make sure our kids have school IDs. I'm also very concerned about the recent incidents in our comprehensive high schools last week, Weequahic, Shabazz, Barringer. I want to know what additional support services and security measures have been taken at those schools. I want to know what is the plan for Mystery Night. I think that's October 30th, when we have an early dismissal at our schools, because we do have a gang presence in some of our schools. It's gang initiation. Is there a plan to dismiss some of our comprehensive schools a little early or provide additional security on October 30th? Thank you.
Mr. Perkins, Dr. Perkins, you want to?
The specific request is related to
The mischief night on October 30th, are we leaving, is there early dismissal or no? What steps are being taken? No?
I'll have to find out if there's October 30th. I don't.
To my knowledge, we have not done early dismissal in the past. I would not anticipate that we would be doing early dismissal. Mr. Ingold is in the back, and he and I will discuss mischief night and what measures we would take. Of course, we're not going to discuss them out in public here, but there will be measures at our buildings to ensure that. But there's never been early dismissal. Not saying it can't happen, but it hasn't happened in the past.
There's not an early dismissal. There are some schools who go to 3:40. If we can cut that extended learning for that day, that would help,
We hear you, and that's a conversation that Dr. Turnamian and Mr. Haggerty and the rest of the academic team will take under consideration and advisement.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ms. Holder.
That I'd like to bring to the board's attention. First of all, I'd like to ask, while we haven't really gotten to the grit of the budget issue here, I'd like to know if you're going to veto any bonus for Cammie Anderson, her failure to close the school year out and leave us in a budget deficit. And I'd like to know if any of her compensation is going to be withheld, and I suggest that we think about withholding compensation for her. Her contract was renewed. 3 months later, she was fired, and then the 2 days after school opened, we found we had a $64.3 million deficit in the budget, which still isn't closed. So I think really her contract requires her to do certain things legally and contractually, and I asked the board to look at that and get an attorney if you have to, because I don't think she should be paid a bonus at the expense of my grandchildren and others having dittos and notebooks, et cetera, et cetera. And that is my recommendation. I'm going to be on like white on rice on each and every one of you about that, because it's unfair that this has happened to us. And also, who monitored that process? Commissioner, if we have to sue Commissioner Hesby, I think he should be sued too. Because while it's a state-operated district, they are responsible for monitoring this district. Just as you talked about the holes with overtime and the other stuff, if it leads back to the same person, Let me tell you, nowhere in corporate America would that person have a job. Nowhere. If the same person's in charge and the same things keep happening, you cannot sit there quietly and expect us to support this kind of nonsense, because we will not support. I'll be leading the charge myself. And believe me, I'm in a better physical condition to do that as well as mentally. The other issue here is that we want the release of the West Side Title I funds, $190,000. We were promised a release of that money soon. We don't know when soon is, but let me tell you the impact of that. And it's a budget issue. Again, the impact is we're not able to have children put in pathways for dual enrollment. We only have 36 children, but with pathways in there, we have the potential to have 100 children in dual enrollment program. But we need the Title I funds released because that will also give them access to college trips and opportunities. Parent-teacher conferences needs to be changed. I've been in 3 schools on parent-teacher conference. 1 to 7 p.m. is not working. Most parents don't run through that door until 6 to 6:30, especially the high school parents, because some of them are working out of town. So 1 to 7 is for the teacher's convenience. 4 to 9 would be for the parents in the community. And that's what other districts do. They don't have daytime meetings. They have meetings when their public can come into the school to support their children. I'm recommending a change in the parent-teacher conference to 4 to 9 p.m. Also, language arts collections. You say we want rigor with collections. I called 3 superintendents. No one's ever heard of this book. It's nowhere but in Newark. It's written for grades 7 through 12. Honor students get it. Advanced placement students get it. General ed students are reading collections, and the special ed students. 1 book. Has anyone read that book? Because I actually have access to that book. It is a disgrace to say we're going to get college ready and have rigor with collections. Please get the book, open it up, and let's have a discussion with Dr. Perkins, because I think it was done for budget reason. It makes no sense to talk about we're going to get our kids college ready, able to write and read and be prepared to graduate college process with collections, a core book for language arts. 70% of the children did not pass science. I'm going to be a little disrespectful because the board did not say anything about why. Don't let the superintendent or anyone else talk to you about 70% of the children did not meet proficiency. I did not have a question why. Was it certified teachers? Was it the fact they don't have laboratories? There are no science laboratories. Blue books don't get it. The blue kids don't get it.
Ms. Holder, your time is up.
On experience. They need laboratory experience so they can learn science.
Holder.
Science is a breathing, living thing. I enjoyed science myself. You can't do it through dittos and with substitutes and a blue box.
Ms. Holder, I suggest you just send an email.
SAT is going to be online.
Ms. Holder.
16. And we are not prepared
Ms. Holder.
children for that.
Ms. Holder, the chair has asked you to wrap up, please.
Yes,
You
has,
have
and I'm
expired
wrapping
your
up with
time.
the fact that I need this board to step up on the budget issue and have the superintendent at the next meeting speak about the budget. I need you to have the physical documents so that
Ms. Holder.
and that didn't
Ms.
happen.
Holder.
That's
Thank
a
you,
failure.
Ms. Holder.
We need that budget.
Ms.
That is
Holder.
driving all of this, and we need legal recourse as well. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
You're welcome, Ms. Holder.
We need to sue.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Holder.
Ms. Holder.
Ms. Orr Davis.
Before the next speaker comes, I just have one legal clarification that I just want everyone to be aware of. All state-operated superintendents from Ms. Hall forward, their contracts are negotiated and they are executed by the commissioner's office. And so therefore, the district has no action or involvement. Any payment pursuant to the contract, Ms. Holder, I'm answering your question, please. Any payment under the contract of a state-operated superintendent is dealt with by the commissioner. We are then told what to do in an act, so we have no authority here.
The board can beg to disagree. The board can.
Ms. Davis.
It's a contractual obligation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Superintendent, board, everyone on the dais. My name is Ora Davis. Been coming to this mic much too long. I'm almost sick and tired of being sick and tired. Everything you said looks so good on paper. But it's not working. It's not working. I didn't come up here to knock anything, but things are not right in the public school. We got unqualified people in the classroom over our children. They're not certified. They look like you picked them up off the corner. I don't know where you got all these people from that you're sending into the school. You don't have no dress code. You don't know the teachers from the bums on the corner. Our children has nothing almost to look forward to. I read in the paper where charter schools has enough money laid aside to build a school, and they said they're gonna build so many new. What are you gonna do with these children that are in public school? These kids are not in charter school. All of them are not there because they wanted there, or the parents wanted them there. Let's be for real. You're not doing the children in public school a service. You're giving them a disservice. 3-year-olds have had 3 people over them since school opening. It's just October. It's a disgrace before God. And all of you that sit up here that have authority, you're gonna reap what you sow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're gonna reap what you sow. You're doing our children a disservice. If you don't mold our 3-year-olds now to love and to learn, you're gonna put them in the 4th grade where they say they're gonna that's when you separate them. If you don't mold them while they're kindergarten to the 3rd grade, you've lost them already. And when you put anybody and everybody over these children, don't give them aids where this little bad boy needs help or the bad girl needs extra help. And you throw them in there with all the kids and the teacher half of the day is saying, sit down and be quiet. You're not doing us right. And you're gonna reap it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davis. Next, we have Ms. Donna Jackson.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Donna Jackson, 128 Smith Street. From the mouth of grandma. I don't know what, right on the heels of Ms. Davis, y'all looking at when y'all do any kind of assessment in any school. That special ed, and I love Ms. Marilyn, I can't think of her last name, Mitchell, to death. Know her since 13th Avenue, long time, a good woman. But the chaos, the destruction of special education for the last 15 years, ain't nothing she could audit. She didn't go into the regular ed classrooms where you guys have dumped all these kids, because they're in there. You ordered special ed classrooms that's out of compliance. What about the kids that have illegally been mainstreamed? Illegally. Parents haven't signed these things. I'm with a young lady today, 11 years old, student at Marin, changing the situation a little bit to protect her. But this is the average kid in special ed. Average kid. Can't sit still. She in the classroom with 15 kids. 14 boys, she the only girl. Was given $3 by one of the boys because she can be influenced to go touch another little boy. With 3 adults in the room, this happened. With 3 adults. School aid now, y'all will hire anybody off the street. You won't hire qualified people. But anybody coming in here that we know can't pass a background check and we know can't pass a drug test, y'all hiring them. You got worse people working in the school system now than ever. We know these people from the community. We wouldn't hire them for nothing, sweep in front of our house, let alone work in these schools with our kids. And that's serious. You got people coming into school. We worrying about our kids being high. This staff is high. Amen. They closed down People Prep for 2 years. They in one of, for 2 days. They in one of our buildings for pill sale. We did nothing. We did nothing. We renting these people this building. They should be out of here. How are we gonna let students sell pills to staff and students and do nothing on our property? We can't do that. So I don't know what the special ed audit looks like. I know it ain't painting an accurate picture of anything. But the destruction that we have done to all of these kids, to all of these teachers, the last thing I'm gonna beg y'all, the audit of residency must be done. Y'all have got to push back against this charter school expansion because 45% of the kids that attend the charters don't live here. we would not be paying $280 million because half of those kids not ours. No out-of-district tuition coming in for that. It is so unfair. I don't know how any of us sit here in the closing with a charter school getting a brand new building every month, and our kids keep walking into hell. They're going to be dead anyway because of the asbestos and the bacteria and so forth in these old buildings that haven't been maintained. And you know why we got overtime? Because we keep cutting back staff. You got 2 custodians in the day, 2 custodians at night. These buildings not clean. So that's where it's coming from. I'm going to sit down.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Next, we have Ms. Deborah Gregory.
Renovation ain't being allowed. Our money.
Deborah Smith Gregory, President of Newark Branch NAACP. I want to say to the board first, Ms. Richardson, I appreciate the in-depth report about curriculum. Mr. Jackson, the report about operations. Ms. Carter, the questioning when you see something is not right. Yes. And we even the same thing with Ms. Fonseca. Mr. Lewis, in terms of the Finance Committee, we cannot have any more impromptu reports from the Finance Committee. It's way too important at this juncture in time. And I was going to say something about Mr. Hassan, the driving that Ms. Jackson said about less people doing more prompts overtime. However, that little bit of overtime that the talent person, Director Rodriguez, spoke about is just a drop in the bucket. That little $10,000 and that $56,000 that she talked about, we're not going to get excited about that little bit of money when we know that it's so much more, and that this abusive theft of time, as Mr. Jackson said, it's not, you all have just thrown, Ms. Rodriguez, I see she left, she threw Local 6832 and 617 under the bus, okay? But she did not address central staff. She did not address the consultants. So when we start adding up the money, that little bit of money that she talked about, we're not going to, and then for the superintendent who left, and I will repeat what I'm saying tonight, next week, that $8.3 million paid overtime has been reduced to the 4.5, and that's something that is of progress. No, it's not, because I'll give a case in point like Ms. Jackson. There's a second grader who is still at home waiting to be placed in a school with his siblings, where the students, he was in Chancellor, but they said he lost his seat. So then he tried to get into Avon where his siblings were, but they said there were no seats. And then when the parents started asking questions about it, then they said, well, we're going to get back to you. It is October 20th, and that second grader is still not in school. That is an indication, that one, and I know what the superintendent says, well, you know, you should just talk, you're talking about one incident, but that one incident is indicative of several incidents. It's more than this just child. In the schools, because there are no support systems, the children are still being scheduled.
Yes.
They're still being scheduled. That summer school fiasco that Ms. Richardson talked about, those kids are still being rescheduled because it's just now that it's coming to light that they passed summer school with certain classes that they were scheduled for in September. This is so terrible, and there's nothing that you can say that's going to make this right. So the Board of Education, I charge you with continuing to ask the hard questions, continuing to do your homework, continuing to lead this charge.
Thank you very much, Ms. Deborah Smith Gregory. Next, we have Mr. Lucius.
Ms. Gregory? Ms. Gregory?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you provide me that information so I can see if we can get that child's issues addressed?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
About 7,000 of them still not in school. I'm out here every day, about 7,000 out of school. I don't know what y'all gonna do about that.
Can we set the clock appropriately, please?
Yeah, we're gonna give you 19 minutes.
Okay. Board members, my address is 224 Richelieu Terrace. And Ileana, this is your year. You know it. You were active when the former board president was there. This is yours. You got to do something. You've been sitting in that seat since April. It's time to take some action. When Mr. Rashawn was sitting there, you were active. And when the baton was passed from Mr. Richardson to Rashawn, that board community was active. We quieted this community down. And all we hear over and over and over again, and it's not me attacking you, it's me trying to talk to you saying, your time is up. That's all we're hearing. Your time is up. You're running the meeting as a chair. Yes, you're running it really, really well, but you're not moving the community piece. Now, I don't know if 920 Broad Street is having a part in this, but we're having a problem, a serious, serious problem. So what I came here to really, other thing I came here to address today is this. What I came here to address here today is bothering me is the criminal attack of my kids. Let me get deep with you, real deep. My daughter at University High School has been attacked since April. Attacked over and over again. She walked into the school in September, the first day on the 4th of September, and immediately put in detention. On September 11th, she wasn't even allowed to participate in the 9/11 celebration at the school. The issue, now I spoke to Mr. Haggerty. For 3 years, I've said nothing, very little. I just reported it to Mr. Haggerty. And the criminal act continues. Now it's at its high. My other daughter, 14-year-old, the vice principal and the principal, Ms. Jackson, Lynn Jackson, coordinated a plan to keep the 14-year-old out of the building. How do I know that? I got phone calls from the committee who told me that they orchestrated a plan. When I approached Ms. Jackson with it, she submitted her resignation and went to South Orange. Mr. Haggerty is also aware of that because he was in a 4-hour meeting with me and other parents who brought this information to his attention. My kids now, one of my daughters is being seen by a therapist because of what's happening at a university. A parent that comes to this board every meeting, Mrs., what's her name? Ms. Vasquez. Her daughter is now no longer at university. She's at Barringer. Because she has, all the years she's been there, she's a junior with not enough credits to graduate. We see the problem here? Do we see the problem here? So I'm going to say to this board, I'm going to make it clear.
if they don't leave my kids alone, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and fight back. I'm going back to the way things used to be. I'm rolling up my sleeve, put my tables out in front of them schools, and I am going to do everything I do. If I got to march them kids in here and let them tell the story in front of the mic, transport them down there to Trenton, to these Camden County, wherever the senators of other white districts live, to get the kids' voices heard, I'm not going to tolerate them harassing my kid. And my 14-year-old baby is just as quiet as she could be. All she wants to do is be with her friends and learn. But because she goes into arts high school and she's approached by a young lady, supposedly, who grabs her by her breasts in the presence of staff. The principal never called, never said one thing. Because there's a culture in that building of seeing that these kids are out of control and the staff is just participating in it by doing nothing. And so my concern is that I want to put on the record that I cannot tolerate them harassing my kids. In closing, when I brought the issue up to Josera, the county superintendent, when I brought the issue up to Brad Haggerty, when I raced down here to speak to Commissioner Surf's secretary and Brad Haggerty in front of and his members, his staff at University High School, all of a sudden, most of the issues with harassing my daughter stopped on the nose. It just stopped on a dime. Now, why do you think that is? Now, could it be that the board meeting is going to be a university? Could it be that the board meeting is going to be a university and they don't want any disruption? My 11th grader is telling me she wants to speak next Tuesday. She wants to speak. Should I let her speak or she going to get taxed some more? Y'all better do something about the principals over there, because I'm telling you, if they attack my kids, I will tomorrow, I'm closing now, I got a call today, say that my 14-year-old arts high will be in school suspension tomorrow. But they ain't sent me a letter today. At one point since school started, tell me why. So you know what I gotta do? What I gotta do? I'm talking about my kids. I know y'all wanna leave, but you're gonna hear about my kids tonight.
Your time is up, Mr. Jones.
Okay? You heard me, right? Do I have to keep her home from school tomorrow? That's my question. Do I have to keep her home from school tomorrow from getting an illegal suspension? That is the question, through the chair. Because I want to know what the board members are going to do. I want to know what they're going to do. Do I need to keep her home from school tomorrow because she's telling me, Daddy, I want to go to school? Do I have to keep her home from school tomorrow, Lillian?
Mr. Jones, with all due respect, can we ask
Madam BA, this is an academic issue, a question that I'm asking these educators up here at this board. Do I have to keep my daughter home from school tomorrow?
Madam Chair. In light of the issue that Mr. Jones presented, can Deputy Superintendent and or Assistant Superintendent shed light on the issue?
Mr. Jones, with all due respect, if you at sidebar, we'll talk to you. This is not an issue on the record we're going to go into. Clearly, the district's position is that it is our responsibility to ensure the safety of all students in our jurisdiction and in our custody during the times that they are there. And that's what we will take great stake to try to afford that happens. I'm going to ask you to do a sidebar with Dr. Turnanian, who's here, and obviously he can discuss with you what would be the proper
I'd
action.
rather do a sidebar with you. Dr. Tamanian's over the K-8 schools.
Sure, I'll be glad to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next, we have ordinary business.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackson.
Just a comment, if you will. This goes back to a discussion that me and you had as a sidebar. One, and I mean this with all due respect, and pardon me if it doesn't sound nice, but it kind of bothers me that NPS staff sit on our meetings or sit in our meetings and pretend or have the attitude of they've done absolutely nothing wrong. It bothers me because we sit in any meetings, we get a nice PowerPoint presentation with pretty pictures and pretty colors. And then we have residents and students come up to the mic and tell us all type of issues, particularly surrounding school placement and school enrollment. I visited the enrollment center personally myself throughout the month of August and September, and we received updates. Oh, everything's going great. We've satisfied parents' complaints. There were even pop-up centers in which enable parents to fight issues or to get answers to issues that they had concerning enrollment. Then here it is, October 20th, 2015, we still have children home. So I say that to say, it is very disheartening that, we have all this executive staff, nice, pretty PowerPoint presentation, but yet there's nothing to be shown for it. Nothing at all in the schools, unfortunately. And my next issue is going to be our committee meetings. One of the reasons why I no longer serve on a particular committee is because, for one, there were some issues that I think weren't properly addressed, and two, the district or persons on that committee that work for the district kind of don't understand the way the committees work. The district is to work in conjunction with board members in the flow of our committee meetings. Some committee meetings seem to be dictated. Some committees want to give us information instead of having us ask or acquire information that we need to make judgment calls. Particularly, the committee I'm talking about is personnel. It's unfortunate, but I feel as though, and I know that information in that committee isn't forthcoming. No information concerning personnel is unfortunately forthcoming. And this is no disrespect to Ms. Carter, who is the chair of that committee, because she does an excellent job in reporting out in her report. But it's the information that we receive from the district that contradicts what happened the month before and the month prior. So, that's just my feeling on the committees. Again, not all committees operate that way. Operations, we don't operate like that. The district gives us what we need. Sometimes we have a little gray areas because board members might not necessarily ask the right questions, but.
So just one quick follow-up, Mr. Jackson. I'm sure that can be ameliorated with probably a discussion with the superintendent, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members? Ms. Pascal Richardson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would like to refer board members to a document that you were given today, which says Highland Park Board of Education. If you could look at the second page on that. This is, and I'm going to read it out loud for the record and for everyone in the audience. So the Highland Park Board of Education passed a resolution which they are asking us to support. This resolution will be presented at the Delegate Assembly of the New Jersey School Board Association in November, and if it passes there, it will be passed on to our New Jersey state legislators for consideration of their, considering it to become law. So I'm going to quickly read the resolution. The resolution is Highland Park Board of Education Charter School Resolution for Delegate Assembly. Whereas Governor Chris Christie proposed language that was adopted by the legislature as part of the state budget for fiscal years 2015 and 2016 that held charter schools harmless from the negative impact of the governor's proposal to flat fund public education, thereby resulting in greater amounts of public dollars being diverted from public school districts to support charter schools. And whereas the Delegate Assembly is the official policymaking body of the New Jersey School Board Association, and whereas education-related policies resulting from prior Delegate Assembly and Board of Directors actions are codified in the New Jersey School Board Association's Manual of Positions and Policies on Education, and now, therefore, be it resolved that the Highland Park Board of Education proposes the following additional policy language for adoption by the Delegate Assembly and inclusion in the NJSBA's Manual of Policies and, Positions and Policies on Education. The NJSBA believes that the governor and the legislature should not use the budget process to hold charter schools and non-public schools harmless from state budget cuts or reallocations of state funds at the expense of public school districts. And be it further resolved that this resolution be placed on the agenda for consideration at the November 21st, 2015 Delegate Assembly. So the Newark Board of Education, as well as other boards around the state, some of whom have already passed supportive resolutions, are being asked to do two things. One is to pass a resolution at our regular board meeting supporting this resolution. And the second thing would be for our delegate to the New Jersey School Board Association Delegate Assembly to support this resolution by voting for it at the Delegate Assembly. So at this point, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that the board accept the spirit of this resolution and that specific wording for our district can be submitted to board members by Thursday for their consideration so that there would be time for feedback. This was emailed to board members in September, but I think that we all kind of neglected to follow up on it. But because the Delegate Assembly is in November, it would make sense for us to vote on this next week so that we could be a part of those districts that are supporting this resolution at the Delegate Assembly.
Okay, just so I understand, so we voted to put it on the agenda for next week, and the board member's going to vote on the resolution next week, right?
So
what do you say about the motion to accept the spirit, just for clarification?
Oh, because this is not the specific wording, because the wording would be modified a bit to say that we are supporting. There will be some additional language saying that we're supporting the Highland Park resolution.
I was just trying to understand the difference between the motion that the board's going to vote on next week as opposed to what you want right now.
It's not two separate motions.
Okay.
So it's one motion, and I guess just a sidebar, understanding that there would be some modification of the language to reflect that this is the Newark Board's supportive resolution.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, that was Ms. Carter. Second by Mr. Jackson. All in favor of the motion as articulated by Board Member Baskerville?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries.
Ayes have it.
Anyone?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
I just wanted one of the public speakers spoke about the words I use when I say impromptu. I used that word because I didn't have my actual document in front of me, but I believe I covered everything that our committee covered on yesterday. One of the Finance Committee is one of the last committees to meet, and I was locked out of my email, so I didn't have the document, so I said impromptu, but I really covered everything that we spoke about last night, so I just wanted to be clear on the record.
Madam Chair, just really quick, I know we're trying to get out of here, so I'm going to be real quick. There was a speaker that talked about high school IDs. this was definitely an issue last year, and I remember talking with several persons in the district, central office staff, trying to get this issue resolved. To my understanding, the district does not have one central plan to distribute IDs throughout the school district. So let's say, hypothetically, of course, Malcolm X Shabazz High School has excellent ID machine that makes 1,000 IDs in a second. Make it look like a motor vehicle license, and then you'll go to Barringer and they have the paper printout ID types. Because there's not a universal system, schools to do, basically do their own thing. I made a suggestion to Ms. Wilson that if we could try to call someone down at 920 Broad Street, City Hall, try to work with someone to say, I do understand the city has a new ID program. Maybe we could try to use your facilities to make a no public school district ID template, and instead of no public schools, and they had the designated high school that you attend with your ID picture and your information, that sort of thing, so that way you can at least identify a high school student, particularly when it comes to testing. So I don't know if we can explore that idea, but I definitely want to put that out there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. No
I'd
one
like the motion to adjourn.
Ms. Lewis, or second?
Second.
Ms. Carter on the second. The motion to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed or abstain? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Good night, everybody.